Chapter 1193. Strictly speaking, it was Ping Zhanyue's support for the disciples. She had never thought that the hearts of the people in her sect would actually be so united. All of them were willing to stay without any hesitation. Looking at the 23 people, Ping Zhanyue almost wanted to roar, "What do you want? If all of you stay here, what will happen to Phoenix Cry Sect's base camp? Are we going to leave a bunch of disciples and elder ancestors to fend for themselves?" Elder Lu, who was the oldest among them, spoke first with a face full of wrinkles and a trembling voice. "I'm old now and I probably don't have many days left to live. However, my wish in this life has not been fulfilled yet. I have 3 wishes in my life. One is to walk on the path of Tao, but I'm old now, and this wish is destined to be impossible. My second wish is that Phoenix Cry Sect can flourish, and with the cooperation of the sect leader and everyone else, our sect will not decline. However, my third wish is to take in a suitable successor. Unfortunately, my cultivation method is different from the others, and it requires a disciple's talent and physique the most. It's something that can only be found by chance, and I thought that this wish would be difficult to fulfill. Unexpectedly, I've seen several young men who are exceptionally compatible with my unique cultivation method in the residents of 9 Supremes' territory today. Heaven has truly taken pity on me, giving me this opportunity to fulfill my long-cherished wish. Our sect and the residents of 9 Supremes' agenda has been set, and someone must be stationed here. I'll be the first to sign up, and I'll definitely do my best to groom them and stand on this last post, so that I can answer to the elder ancestors when I die in the future. My fellow disciples, please don't fight with me over this, okay?" Elder Lu's words were spoken with deep emotion, with the desolation of an old man. Even the declaration that he would not hesitate to die was enough to intimidate everyone present. If it had been any other occasion, his presence would have been a foregone conclusion. However, just as he finished speaking. Before he finished speaking, the other white-haired elderly coughed and faintly said, "What Senior Brother Lu said makes sense. We are old and frail, how can we endure such a long and arduous journey back home?" Calculating it, this old man's age is not much younger than Senior Brother Lu's. "I think it won't be long before I die. I'll stay here and accompany Senior Brother Lu. Although I'm in my twilight years, I still have some experience and knowledge. I'm happy to make one last contribution to the sect. I'm duty-bound, duty-bound." At this moment, the two of them were completely different from when they first arrived. They had white hair and ruddy complexions. Their faces were ruddy and their white hair was bleak. Even their eyes seemed to be turbid. Just then, a female elder with a few strands of white hair let out a long, desolate sigh. "I'm getting on in years. My body isn't as good as it used to be these 2 years. I don't want to move no matter where I go. Now that I've come to the residence of 9 Supremes and coincide with the sect's joint appointment, I'll just be lazy and stay here to train a few disciples for the sect." She did not want to leave at all. Gan Tianyan rolled her eyes and said, "Senior brothers and sisters, of course all of you are loyal. For the sake of the sect, how can I, Gan Tianyan, fall behind? I'm also happy to stay here and contribute to the sect. Besides, I was the one who suggested this and I'm the one in charge of it. I still need to discuss with sect leader Yun and the other peak masters of the residents of 9 Supremes about the follow-up. Nobody can be absent, but I can't be absent. Moreover, Luo's in-laws are here. The child has always been timid and she can't get used to leaving me." Hearing Gan Tianyan's words, the elders of the Phoenix Cry sect glared at her. "You said that you're going to contribute and that's a fact. No one will object to it, but what did you say next? Luo is timid? May I ask, how is that girl timid? If she's a little braver, she'll probably set fire to the Phoenix Cry sect and she'll do it more than once. She's chased her husband from the south to the north alone, and she's never suffered any loss. May I ask, where do you see that she's timid?" The other female disciples were shocked when they saw the poisonous insects. "This girl has been playing with poisonous insects since she was 3 years old. Is this a sign of timidity?" However, no matter how indignant everyone was, what Gan Tianyan said was reasonable. Whether it was reasonable or not, no one could deny it. Therefore, it was already a foregone conclusion that she would stay here. At this moment, the female elders who had deliberately maintained their youthful looks and figures were a little embarrassed. "This is not right. Everyone's real age is about the same, but now all of you are so slovenly and pretentious, and you're saying that it's reasonable? This is not right, it's even more wrong. Although I look young on the surface, my heart is already old. I know that the reason why our sect can prosper so much is because of the countless efforts and hard work that my senior brothers and sisters have put in for the sect. In the past, I've always reaped the fruits of others' labor, and I've long felt guilty and uneasy. This time, no matter what, I must stay here and contribute to the development of the sect. I must train a few more disciples, and only then can I make up for my past mistakes. A young and beautiful female elder spoke in a righteous and stern manner. That's right, that's right. I've been concentrating on cultivation all these years. Although I've made some personal achievements, I've made no contribution to the development of the sect. I'm very ashamed. I hope that the sect leader can give me a chance to stay here and contribute. I don't dare to say anything else, but I have a lot of say in cultivation. I'm ashamed. 23 people spoke one after another. Their words were filled with all sorts of strange meanings. But in general there was only one meaning: I want to stay here. Everyone was like that, no one was an exception. However, after a while, when they finally saw Ping Jinyue's cold face that was as dark as water, they slowly shut their mouths and sat there awkwardly, not daring to speak anymore. Ping Jinyue took a deep breath, finally suppressing the sudden surge of energy that had just surged. I want to stay here too, okay? But now that you've said all the high-sounding reasons, what else do you want me to say? What else can I say? Of course, while Ping Jinyue was thinking further about the cooperation with the residents of Nine Supremes, she was also thinking about the issue of Phoenix Cry Sect's inheritance. The residents of Nine Supremes had relented and given very convenient conditions. The cooperation was already set in stone, and the problem of genius disciples, the hardest to solve, was no longer a problem. However, another problem followed: the candidate for the sect leader's position. The candidate for the sect leader's successor had always been a big problem, and it could be said to be the most important problem in the sect. Generally speaking, the successor of the sect leader would be chosen by the disciples of the sect leader, the best of the best. Only the most outstanding and the most respected person would be able to take up the position of sect leader. Very few people would feel dissatisfied or dissatisfied. This was because the disciples of the sect leader's faction had always been the most outstanding in the entire sect. In fact, whenever there was a new disciple, the sect leader's disciples would be the first to choose. For example, Ping Jinyue's first disciple, Qi Lai, was the top person in the entire Phoenix Cry sect, and no one was above him. However, with this opportunity of cooperation, the situation was very different. According to common sense, all 24 Phoenix Cry sect's higher-ups could stay, but it was inconvenient for Ping Jinyue, the sect leader, to stay here to teach disciples. She had to return to Phoenix Cry sect to preside over the sect. However, the aptitude of Phoenix Cry sect's disciples was obviously far inferior to the residents of Nine Supremes' disciples. Then what would happen when these disciples grew up in the future? What would happen? Forcing the original disciples of the sect leader to continue taking over the power would obviously not convince everyone. However, if she did not do so, would the power not be given to someone else? If the sect leader, which had been passed down for more than 20 generations since her founding master, was replaced by someone else, Ping Jinyue would definitely not allow it. She could not tolerate it. Therefore, seeing her senior brothers and sisters eagerly wanting to stay, Ping Jinyue could not help but feel a sense of helplessness that could not be dispelled. What should she do? What was the right thing to do? Let's discuss who should stay when we get back to the base. Don't quarrel here. It'll be embarrassing if we let sect leader Yun see us as a joke. Ping Jinyue spoke up to stop the farce. This made Yun Yang, who was watching the show, cough. His expression turned serious again and he sat up straight. As Ping Jinyue spoke, the 23 experts of the Phoenix Cry sect stopped fighting and sat down awkwardly. It was obvious that they had realized that their actions just now were very inappropriate. Let's limit the number of people and the teaching time first. Ping Jinyue sucked in a breath and suppressed the resentment in her heart. Yun Yang said, "Sect leader Ping, please speak your mind. I think that the teaching time shouldn't be too short, but it can't be too long either." Ping Jinyue said, "What do you think, sect leader Yun? I would like to hear your opinion first." Yun Yang thought about it and said, "I believe that sect leader Ping and all the seniors have seen the condition of these disciples. The youngest among them is only about 5 or 6 years old, while the older ones are no more than 15 or 16 years old at most. To train these disciples, even if they have some minor achievements, I believe that it'll be difficult to do so without 8 to 10 years of training." When Yun Yang said this, everyone nodded in unison. They were all experts in cultivation, so naturally, they would not have any doubts about this. As the saying went, it took 10 years to grow a tree but 100 years to nurture a person. 10 years was still too little. This is what I think. If we limit the teaching time to 3 or 5 years, then we, the residents of Nine Supremes, will be taking advantage of all of you and harboring evil intentions. I'm afraid that it'll be difficult to finish teaching them in such a short amount of time, and it'll be even more impossible for the disciples to feel touched and follow you willingly. Yunyang looked at the people of the Phoenix Cry sect as he said this. The 24 people nodded in agreement once more. What Yunyang had said was very reasonable and he had put it in the light. If that's the case, why don't we set a slightly longer time limit? How about 10 years? Yunyang looked at Ping Zhanyue for her opinion and said, 10 years is enough for a 5 or 6-year-old toddler to grow into a young man who can basically understand everything. Besides, I'm not afraid of angering all of you seniors, but if you can't change someone after 10 years, I'm afraid the other party will still not leave with you even after a few more decades. This may not sound nice, but it's the truth. I hope all of you seniors will consider it. The people nodded, still agreeing that what he said was true and reasonable. 10 years later, a 16 or 17-year-old young man would already have the sense of right and wrong to distinguish between good and bad, as well as a personality with independent opinions and thoughts. If he was still unwilling to follow them by then as Yunyang had said, even if he taught them for another 50 or 100 years, their relationship would still remain at the stage of forming a good relationship. It would never be able to change his mind, and he would still be a member of the residence of 9 Supremes. 10 years is fine. Ping Zhinyue nodded. The time was set just like that. Then there's the number of people. May I know how many people you are aiming for, seniors? Yunyang asked. When he mentioned the number of people, the people of the Phoenix Cry sect widened their eyes again. Teaching 1 or 2 disciples was obviously a different concept from teaching 100 or 200 disciples. However, to the people of the Phoenix Cry sect, the more people, the better. Yunyang said, Seniors, there's something I have to say first. The number of disciples we're planning to give up is not a lot. I hope that seniors can understand. Upon hearing this, the faces of the people from the Phoenix Cry sect immediately became gloomy and uncertain. They no longer had the amiable expressions they had before. However, what Yunyang had said was within reason. Anyone would be able to understand it. The sect had recruited many talented disciples, but it was their own ability. Why should they give up a lot of disciples? Should they let you do whatever you want? It's already good enough to let you have a share of the profits, all right? Ping Zhinyue said cautiously, May I ask how many disciples sect leader Yun is planning to give to us? Yunyang chuckled and said, Sect leader Ping, I think it's better for you to tell us what the number is in your heart. Give us a rough number and we'll discuss it on this basis and adjust accordingly. Ping Zhinyue was immediately conflicted. Give a number? What should she say? How could she be satisfied if she said too little? However, if she really said too much, there would definitely be a conflict of words, causing the originally harmonious atmosphere to become estranged. Furthermore, she would seem too greedy and become a laughing stock. Yunyang encouraged/bewitched her as much as he could. Actually, this number of people is just a business to me. Sect leader Ping, feel free to say it. As the saying goes, ask for as much as you want. If sect leader Ping asks for too much and exceeds the bottom line of my heart, I won't agree to it no matter what, will I? As he said this, he laughed twice with a hint of self-mockery. Immediately, everyone's gaze focused on Ping Zhinyue. Ping Zhinyue gritted her teeth and took a deep breath. Her bright eyes scanned the faces of her fellow disciples, and she finally said resolutely, Sect leader Yun, the fundamental reason for our cooperation this time is that your sect doesn't have enough teachers. How about a 50-50 split? When the upper echelons of the Phoenix Cry sect heard this, they were immediately shocked to the point that they were thrown into a state of disarray. Sect leader, you really dare to ask for a sky-high price? You're really asking for a sky-high price just because he said so? A 50-50 split. This sect leader Yun must have gone crazy when she heard this. We want a lot, but a 50-50 split is something we've never even thought about. Otherwise, she's the sect leader and we can't compare. As expected, Yunyang vetoed it decisively. No, absolutely not. There's no such logic. If sect leader Ping were to split it like this, wouldn't you be giving half of the residence of 9 Supremes to her? Ping Zhinyue was already prepared for Yunyang's attitude. She snorted, not offended, and said, Then sect leader Yun, please state the number. Yunyang said, How about 100? One asked for 7,000 while the other countered with 100. The difference was just too much. Everyone immediately felt a toothache again. That was exactly what the old saying was true. Asking for a sky-high price and then returning it on the ground. It was a textbook deduction. Both sides were too ridiculous. 6,000. Ping Zhinyue's eyes shone as she lowered the price. However, this number was still ridiculous and the people of the Phoenix Cry sect still thought so. No, it's still too much. I'll compromise again. How about 150? 5,000. No, 200 at most. The two sect leaders began to bargain like street peddlers, gradually testing each other's bottom line. Ping Jinyue's ideal number was around 500. If they could really get 500 genius disciples from the residents of Nine Supremes, it would be a great victory for the Phoenix Cry sect. It was because of this mentality that she had asked for 7,000, a number that would have sounded ridiculous to anyone. She was not the least bit angry at Yun Yang's rejection, for she knew that it was absolutely impossible. 3,000. Ping Jinyue continued to test him. The basis of the cooperation is the sincerity of both sides. I can only give you 400 disciples at most. I really can't go any higher. Yun Yang clenched his teeth and took every step carefully. Sect leader Yun, we've already shown enough sincerity for this collaboration. With how loyal those children are to the residents of Nine Supremes, we might end up with nothing. How can we not cast a wider net? If the number is less than 2,000, there's no point in working with us anymore. Ping Jinyue retreated in order to advance, and she began to make hidden threats. According to Ping Jinyue's calculations, there was a high chance that Yun Yang would not give in and might even fly into a rage. However, as long as she took a step back and reduced the number of disciples to 800, Yun Yang would be able to save his face. When he was in a good mood, he might even agree. Even if Yun Yang still did not agree, she could just let him decide the number. Anyway, it had already reached 400, which was very close to her target. She believed that the final number would be higher than this number. Even if it was 400 people, it would be enough. However, as soon as she said 2,000, she saw Yun Yang frown and actually fall into deep thought. The eyes of all the Phoenix Cry sect's higher-ups lit up. There's a way. This chapter has 5,000 words. I wish everyone a happy Lantern Festival. I've received feedback that one chapter a day is too little. Even if one chapter has 8,000 words, it would be better to split it into 2 chapters with 2,000 words each. After all, one chapter is not as much as 2 chapters. It's hard for me to understand the truth. Most of the brothers who had followed Feng Ling for more than 10 years wouldn't be calculative about this. They especially wouldn't be calculative about the number of chapters with me. After so many years of working with each other, we already knew about this. However, now that there was such a comment, I didn't know if I was happy or sad. Chapter 1194. Today was his mother's birthday and he drank a little too much, so he took the day off. Cough cough. Actually, he had some time to write in the afternoon, but he slacked off. It was his mother's birthday, so he had an excuse. He took the day off. I am the Supreme. Today was his mother's birthday, so he took the day off. Currently typing, please wait a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 1195. Including Gan Tianyin, the number of Phoenix Cry sect's higher-ups was not high. They dared not have high expectations. After all, they were the sect's disciples. Even if they were to give up 100, it would be a great favor. The quality of the disciples was already far higher than the standard of the disciples that Phoenix Cry sect could recruit in each generation. Most of them were extremely satisfied with the 400 people that Ping Jinyue had achieved. 400 people, even if there were 20 people stationed here, each person could get 20 disciples. What was the concept of 20 gifted disciples? How many disciples did they have in the Phoenix Cry sect's headquarters? The most were 20 to 30, and the least were only 5 to 6. Furthermore, their talents were far inferior to these disciples in front of them. But now there were 20 of them at once. This was really good, very good. Everyone could even sense that their sect leader was putting on a strong front. The 2000 ultimatum was just a tactic to make a retreat. Throughout the entire process, the person who was most afraid of the failure of this collaboration was Phoenix Cry sect's leader, Ping Jinyue. What he did not expect was that Yun Yang actually seemed to be considering it seriously. Could it be that there was hope for such an exorbitant number? It was a crucial moment. Everyone present held their breaths. The entire room was so silent that even a pin drop could be heard. Yun Yang seemed to be thinking hard for a long time, sweat beading on his forehead. He said slowly, 2,000, it's not impossible, but if it's 2,000 we have to pick first. Ping Jinyue felt an inexplicable joy rush to her scalp. She could not help but take a deep breath, but she could not relax now. This was the most crucial moment. Ping Jinyue pressed on, her attitude becoming more and more unyielding. Sect leader Yun, you must be joking. If you pick first, what's the point of our collaboration? You've already picked the best geniuses, so what are we left to choose? If so, why don't we call off this collaboration? Her words were overbearing, each one striking to the heart. In the eyes of the Phoenix Cry sect's people, Yun Yang's consideration was even more difficult. He could not decide for a long time, tapping his fingers lightly on the table with a frown. In the eyes of those from the Phoenix Cry sect, Yun Yang's consideration was even more difficult. He could not make up his mind for a long time, tapping his fingers on the table with a frown. If I can't pick first. Yun Yang's gaze was unprecedentedly solemn as he hesitated. Ping Zhanyue's eyes lit up. After all, he's just a youngster. How could he be a match for a veteran like me? If you hesitate, it means that you have a guilty conscience. Then I will add fuel to the fire. This is the struggle for the inheritance. There is no room for soft-heartedness. Sect leader Yun, our current cooperation model can be said to be even more stable than an alliance. If we become unhappy over such a small amount, I think I will be very regretful. What do you think, sect leader Yun? Ping Zhanyue said indifferently. Actually, his voice had already started to tremble. He shouted in his heart. 2,000. 2,000. 2,000 geniuses. He was about to get it. Oh my goodness. Our Phoenix Cry sect is about to rise. A mere first place with a middle-grade celestial luck banner is no longer worthy of my attention. We will aim our swords at the high-grade celestial luck banner, or even higher. The other elders of the Phoenix Cry sect also had enthusiastic looks in their eyes. Each and every one of them put their hands under the table and were already sweating. They were so satisfied. I'm so satisfied. Sect leader, you have to take it easy. Don't push him too far. He's just a little kid. If the other party were to become anxious, fly into a rage out of humiliation, and directly turn hostile, then it would be like drawing water with a sieve. Under everyone's gaze, Yun Yang suddenly relaxed as if he had lost all his strength. He said listlessly, Sect leader Ping, you're amazing. 2,000, let's do it this way. An elder of the Phoenix Cry sect could not help but feel a surge of emotion. He lost his composure and jumped up. Then he immediately came to his senses and sat down. His face was full of seriousness again, as if what the others had seen just now was just an illusion. However, his face was getting redder and redder. His fellow disciples looked at him fiercely. Idiot! You're going to ruin everything. Fortunately, sect leader Yun did not seem to care about these minor details. He said dejectedly, but if this is the number, even if we can't choose first, you can't choose first either. What do you mean, sect leader Yun? Ping Zhanyue suppressed the ecstasy in her heart. There are a total of 4,000 disciples who haven't been recruited yet. They're divided into 28 teams. We'll gather them now and draw lots to decide. Yun Yang said, you can only choose 4 of the teams as you wish. Those 4 teams will belong to those 4 teams. You're not allowed to pick the other teams. Yun Yang said, this is my bottom line. I won't give in any more. Looking at Yun Yang's determined gaze, Ping Zhanyue knew that he had already reached his limit. If there was any more pressure, he would probably fight back to his limit. The result of fighting back to his limit would not only cause this cooperation to fail, it might even cause both parties to turn against each other. Alright, let's do that. Ping Zhanyue agreed readily. Sect leader Yun, let's clap our hands as a vow. Clap, clap, clap. After 3 claps, the matter was settled. The Phoenix Cry sect's disciples cheered thunderously. Yun Yang looked dejected. Sect leader Ping, the older, the wiser. This junior is impressed. He chuckled bitterly. I know that 2,000 is still too much, but, sect leader Ping, your negotiation skills are really... That's enough, I admit defeat. Ping Zhanyue smiled proudly. It's just that sect leader Yun is generous and has given me some leeway. I thank you here. Now, the matter between both parties was settled. Yun Yang sent Luo Dajiang and the others to lead the Phoenix Cry sect's disciples to their lodgings and stay there. Of course, he could not arrange the lodgings himself. That was a logistical matter. If he did everything himself, it would be overly solicitous and demeaning. This matter should have been handled by Qian Duo, but with Luo Dajiang, the Phoenix Cry sect's son-in-law, it was naturally more appropriate. Just as the Phoenix Cry sect's disciples were led out by Luo Dajiang, the remaining 8 members of the Demiurge Flawed 10, other than Shi Wuchen and Luo Dajiang, stared at Yun Yang in confusion. Their gazes were almost spitting fire. Boss, tell us quickly what's going on. What right does the Phoenix Cry sect have to take away 2,000 of our disciples? How could you agree to it? This? It's not appropriate, is it? Obviously, the brothers did not agree with Yun Yang's decision and were reluctant to do so. They had worked so hard and did not even know when they had recruited so many talented disciples. Many of them had only just learned that the residents of Nine Supremes had so many talented disciples, but 2,000 of the 14,000 people who could dazzle anyone's eyes had been given to the Phoenix Cry sect all of a sudden. No matter how they looked at it, this result was too much of a pity and a great loss. Even if there was a so-called cooperation, even if there was a beautiful original intention, and even if there was a so-called consideration for the many disciples who did not want to delay their talents, these reasons were all untenable when analyzed in detail. They were all one-sided wishful thinking and inappropriate timing. How could Yun Yang, who usually looked very smart, be so ignorant before such a major event, especially when he was intimidated by Ping Jinyue just now? The anger in everyone's heart was rising, and they almost exploded. What kind of cooperation is this? We can't see any tangible benefits here at all, understand? Yun Yang chuckled and said, "Brothers, don't be anxious. The residence of Nine Supremes has only just been established, and we urgently need your sects to join us. First, we made a deal with the General Commerce League and now we're working with the Phoenix Cry sect. At least in the short term, we don't have to worry. The main purpose of this compromise is to buy time for our development." Yun Yang said seriously, "Because what we lack the most is time, brothers. We seem to have the middle-class celestial luck banner and become famous overnight, but our real foundation is far from enough, and our foundation is not stable. In the previous battle for the celestial luck banner, we've made too many enemies. It's really difficult to move forward and we're surrounded by enemies everywhere, to the point where we're constantly worried about our sect's safety. Now, however, with a large number of Phoenix Cry sect experts coming to our sect, it's no different than our ability increasing several times out of thin air." Lan Ruojuan nodded, but he did not look worried as he said, "What boss said makes sense. What you've said is all about our sect's current shortcomings. These are undeniable, but even if our sect's foundation is not solid, we only need to work hard to strengthen it. As long as we don't provoke a strong enemy with the defensive power of our sect, we should be able to defend ourselves even if the sects with the middle-class celestial luck banner come to attack us. However, isn't the so-called cooperation with the Phoenix Cry sect too wasteful to send out 2,000 talented and excellent disciples at once?" Yun Yang chuckled again when he heard that. "Ruojuan, what you said makes sense, but it's a little too much. While our school's defensive formation is powerful enough to withstand the attack of a sect with a middle-class celestial luck banner, it can only withstand it, not be a match for it. What if there are really sects that are shameless enough to drag it out with us? What should we do then? Other than establishing a friendly relationship, I've chosen to cooperate with the Phoenix Cry sect because I intend to use their manpower to strengthen the sect's foundation. Since I want to use their manpower, how can I do it without paying a corresponding price? 2,000 disciples may seem like a large number, but we have a total of 14,000 excellent disciples. It's definitely worth it to use that number to exchange for an ally and help like the Phoenix Cry sect." Seeing that everyone was still indignant, Yun Yang wanted to say something but stopped. After a pause he continued, "Besides these 2,000 disciples, we're only handing them over to teach them. At least in name, they're still disciples of the residents of Nine Supremes. How many do you think will follow them 10 years later? If you start worrying now, you'll have to worry about it 10 years later." Listening to Yun Yang's words, the faces of the brothers gradually turned thoughtful. It was true that their boss was right. Although this would mean giving up a lot of talented disciples, the residents of Nine Supremes would also gain safe time for rapid development. Most importantly, as Yun Yang had said, the Phoenix Cry sect had indeed obtained the teaching rights of 2,000 disciples, but those who would ultimately choose to follow them might not necessarily be 2,000. It was destined to be less than this number. Tai Ching-tsang, Ping Xiaoyi, Guanuanyang, Shirbujia, and Ren Qingquang looked thoughtful and nodded in agreement. "Boss is right." In spite of this, Lan Ruojuan, Wu Minghuan, and Kong Luoyue still felt that there was something odd about the whole thing. The three of them were more flexible than the others, feeling that there must be another meaning behind their boss' action. After some thought, Kong Luoyue was the first to understand and could not help chuckling. Following his laugh, Lan Ruojuan and Wu Minghuan understood as well. The three of them grinned at Tai Ching-tsang and the others who were still nodding in agreement and said in unison, "You fools, aren't you ashamed to be teachers?" Tai Ching-tsang and the others were infuriated, rolling up their sleeves and getting ready to fight. Just as the clamor was about to rise, Yun Yang coughed and said, "I wonder how improper it is for all of you to be so loud when there are guests here. Where is your demeanor as teachers?" Lan Ruojuan, Wu Minghuan, and the others understood at once and blinked in understanding. "Boss, we'll save it, we'll save it." Tai Ching-tsang frowned and chided them, "What do you know? Don't think that your father doesn't know that you're all up to no good. We're smart enough to understand you, Kong Luiyue said disdainfully. As his words trailed off, the three of them turned and left together. Tai Ching-tsang grew even more infuriated. He chased after them with the others and grabbed Kong Luiyue fiercely. You bastards. If you don't make it clear, don't blame us for bullying you with numbers and maiming you. Kong Luiyue snorted. His eyes flickered, but he spoke to Tai Ching-tsang through telepathy. You really don't know anything. Boss has set a 10-year deadline and you still don't understand? That's a whole decade. Tai Ching-tsang was still at a loss and said in surprise, 10 years? So what if it's 10 years? Kong Luiyue rolled his eyes and said breathlessly, I've made it so clear but you still don't understand? Why don't you die of stupidity? 10 years? Isn't it just 10 seasons? Tai Ching-tsang thought about it in a daze and became more and more confused. Suddenly he flew into a rage. What are you trying to say? Can't you be more straightforward? Idiot. Kong Luiyue scolded him through telepathy. Let me ask you, how many years has Phoenix Cry Sect been established? Phoenix Cry Sect is a famous sect in the Bound of Universe, so it should have been established for thousands or even tens of thousands of years, right? Tai Ching-tsang answered with some uncertainty. It's a famous sect, but after thousands or tens of thousands of years, it has only stopped at mid-grade, right? Nonsense. If it's not mid-grade, can it be upper grade? Tai Ching-tsang looked at Kong Luiyue with disdain. I doubt your intelligence. Are you stupid? Are you muddle-headed? Did you pour a bellyful of bad ideas into your head? Kong Luiyue almost choked to death on the breath he was holding. I can't believe Tai Ching-tsang scolded me for having a low IQ. This was simply unbearable, unbearable, unbearable. For a moment he did not know what to say. Calling you an idiot is to beautify you. You're an idiot, a coward, and a villain. Kong Luiyue said through gritted teeth. Phoenix Cry Sect has been established for a long time, but it's still a mid-grade sect after so many years. On the other hand, Residence of Nine Supremes has risen to the level of mid-grade in less than 2 years. Don't you understand the difference? Boss has said that what we lack now is time. What time do you think it is? During the 10 years that Phoenix Cry Sect has been in Residence of Nine Supremes, there have been 3 Celestial Luck Banners. According to the speed of Residence of Nine Supremes development, we can be promoted to an upper-grade sect in these 10 years, can't we? In fact, it's not entirely impossible to go one step further and become a palace sect, alright. Kong Luiyue roared through telepathy. Boss's idea seems absurd, but it's actually feasible. At least, I'm full of confidence and fighting spirit. Now use your brain that's filled with water and think about it. 10 years later, when the disciples make their own choice, if it were you, would you choose the Sacred Heart Palace, the Supreme Existence, or the Residence of Nine Supremes, a middle-class sect? Tai Ching-tsang said with a chuckle. Me? Of course I'll choose the Residence of Nine Supremes. No matter how good the Sacred Heart Palace is, I don't care. Kong Luiyue covered his face and sobbed. I've been defeated by you, Ching-tsang. Ridiculous. Tai Ching-tsang's tower-like burly body turned and left, shaking his head as he walked. I can't believe you're testing my loyalty with such a simple question. He swaggered off. Kong Luiyue grabbed his hair in agony and shouted hoarsely, Tai Ching-tsang, you don't deserve to be listed among the Demiurge Flawed 10 with your IQ. On the other side, Lan Ruojuan frowned and kept thinking. This is still not right. Boss should have other intentions, they might not be so simple. But what else is there? Chapter 1196. On the other side, the people of Phoenix Cry Sect were gathered together, and Ping Zhanyue, who was sitting in the middle, was furious. Look at what all of you have done. Since our sect was established, we have never been so humiliated. Ping Zhanyue was furious this time. In front of outsiders, can't you leave some dignity for our Phoenix Cry Sect? Can't you? All the higher-ups of Phoenix Cry Sect lowered their heads and did not say a word after being scolded by their leader. Just now, everyone was fighting to stay, fearing that they would not be selected. It was indeed humiliating. There was no room for argument. Everyone knew this in their hearts. But there were 2,000 genius disciples. 2,000. Faced with such a temptation, who would not want to stay? Even if she was the sect leader, no matter how dignified she sounded, how nice she sounded, could it be that she really did not want to stay? What kind of joke was this? If she had other thoughts, we wouldn't have to come all the way to the Residence of Nine Supremes. Our only purpose here was to find a way to recruit excellent disciples into Phoenix Cry Sect. Sect leaders' words are reasonable. Then let's discuss who will stay and who will return to our sect. The oldest white-bearded elder Lu rolled his eyes and said, "But there's one thing I must say first. I don't care about the others, but I must stay. My body is broken and I can't travel tens of thousands of miles anymore." The other old man also lowered his head. "This old man will also stay. I've done a lot of shameless things in my life. Today's incident won't make much of a difference." Gan Tianyan pursed her lips and said, "You haven't thanked me yet. I'm the one who made this happen. I must stay. Now that Luo will stay in the residence of 9 Supremes, I can't leave my disciple. No matter what, it's useless." Another beautiful female elder said, "Senior Sister Gan, speaking of Luo, you always have a satisfactory disciple. I've never been satisfied with the disciples I've accepted in my life. If I can't take this opportunity to accept a successor, then I've really come to this world in vain. No matter what, I'm going to stay. I'm going all out today, scold and say whatever you want." For a moment, the crowd's emotions surged. Everyone had their own reasons for staying. Furthermore, they were all expressing their feelings and frankly admitting that they had to stay. Seeing this scene, Ping Zhanyue was so angry that her chest heaved up and down. "So everything I said just now was for nothing. None of you have repented at all." "No." Ping Zhanyue immediately rejected the idea. They were all bastards. If all the high-level members of the Phoenix Cry sect were to stay here, wouldn't the mountain gate of the Phoenix Cry sect become an empty city? Since every single one of you wants to stay and you have to stay, but the mountain gate cannot be left unguarded. In that case, don't leave a single one of you behind. Ping Zhanyue gritted her teeth and said, "There are 24 of us in total. If we split the 2,000 disciples, each of us could get at least 80 or 90 people." But now, hearing Ping Zhanyue's words, everyone lowered their heads and pouted. 24 people, yes, of course it's 24 people. I knew that the sect leader would also have a share. If these disciples are divided equally among 12 people, then each person will be teaching close to 200 disciples. Ping Zhanyue said, "No one should think about staying here permanently. We have 24 people and we'll split into 2 shifts. Each of us will recruit disciples that we like and we'll form groups of 2. When one of us is not around, the other will be responsible for teaching. We'll rotate every half a year. That's settled, I'll make the decision." When the elders heard this, they were originally unwilling. However, after thinking about it carefully, their expressions became thoughtful. If they could not stay here permanently, then this idea was already the best choice. No one would be able to reap all the benefits alone, but no one would be left behind either. "I think this idea is feasible." An elder was the first to express his agreement. This elder was considered the weaker one in the fight just now. He had long been apprehensive, afraid that he would not be able to win against the others. Naturally, he was the first to agree now. At least, this result was much better than getting nothing. "I agree as well. This is a great idea, sect leader." Gan Tianyan was the second to express her agreement. She and Ping Zhanyue were disciples of the same master. Both of them had the same thoughts and there were no grudges between them. Gan Tianyan was especially proud of her unique identity. In terms of the residence of 9 Supremes, she had a far greater advantage than the other disciples. Now that she was supporting her sect leader and senior sister, she naturally had to do it. Everyone agreed immediately. There was no way they could disagree. If they continued arguing, they might really end up in a fight. That would really be a joke. "Alright, let's form the teams now and draw lots. Those who draw lots will stay. As for the rest, leave as soon as you're done. You're not allowed to stay for even a moment longer." Ping Zhanyue announced seriously. All the elders agreed with a pout. She was indeed the sect leader. She scolded everyone with her righteous words, but she did not leave behind any of the benefits that belonged to her. Gan Tianyan and Ping Zhanyue naturally formed a team. The others also formed their own teams and began to draw lots. Then, of course, 12 of them beamed with joy and cursed under their breaths. Gan Tianyan was, of course, the first to stay. In fact, even if Gan Tianyan had not been qualified and only Ping Zhanyue had drawn lots, she would have let Gan Tianyan be the first to stay. After all, she was the sect leader and she needed to stay in the first stage to take charge. "The future of Phoenix Cry sect depends on all of you," Ping Zhanyue instructed solemnly. White-bearded elderly narrowed his eyes and said, "Sect leader, this matter of drawing lots for disciples should be carried out as soon as possible. My deific consciousness has been covering the residence of 9 Supremes just now. The residence of 9 Supremes has kept its promise and has not done anything. However, the hearts of men are not what they used to be. If they have other thoughts and make a move behind our backs, it will be very disadvantageous to us." Everyone nodded. Although these words were said with the heart of a villain, no one in Phoenix Cry's sect objected to it, since they were desperate for talented disciples. So be it if he had the heart of a villain. We don't have such a source of students. An hour later, Yun Yang and the other higher-ups of the Residence of Nine Supremes gathered together with the higher-ups of Phoenix Cry sect. On the plaza, 28 teams were neatly arranged into 28 square teams, which were gathered in front of them. The Residence of Nine Supremes and Phoenix Cry sect will recruit disciples today. Disciples, it's time to decide your fate. Yun Yang first comforted them out of habit. If you're lucky enough to be chosen by Phoenix Cry sect, you'll have 10 years to cultivate Phoenix Cry sect's cultivation method. After 10 years, you'll have another chance to represent your sect if your cultivation base is successful. Yun Yang explained everything in detail. It was not until Yun Yang finished that the commotion among the disciples subsided. Then Ping Jinhua began to draw lots. 3rd, 7th, 15th, and 23rd. Step forward. As far as the eye could see, all he could see was the disappointment on the faces of the 4 large groups of disciples, and they did not conceal it at all. How unlucky, how could I be chosen by Phoenix Cry sect? How unlucky. In the future, everyone will still learn in the Residence of Nine Supremes, but the teachers of each sect will only be responsible for their own disciples. Yun Yang announced according to the previous agreement. However, the disciples of the 2 sects will still follow the inherent competition mechanism of the Residence of Nine Supremes. From today onwards, there will be an arena for the disciples of each sect. At the same time, the corresponding reward and punishment rules will be set. Disciples can challenge each other or apply to be the ring master based on their own strength. The winner will be rewarded, and those who succeed in defending the arena will also be rewarded. I hope that the disciples of the Residence of Nine Supremes won't lose to others. Yun Yang's words lit up the eyes of the 10,000 disciples present, their eyes sparkling brightly. Even the higher-ups of the Phoenix Cry sect brightened when they heard this. This was a good idea. The competition between the disciples of the 2 sects would not only promote their enthusiasm for cultivation, but it might also cause some hostility between the disciples of the 2 sections. In that case, the disciples who cultivated Phoenix Cry sect's cultivation method should be given an additional 30%. Good idea. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, 3 arenas in a triangular shape suddenly rose from the ground and stood majestically in front of them. Arenas for the strong. Arenas for the challenge. Arenas for the 2 sects. There were 3 arenas in total. They seemed to be repetitive and cumbersome, but in fact each had its own purpose. In fact, they were not repetitive and were not cumbersome. All the disciples were eager to try, and the teachers of the Residence of Nine Supremes were also confident. Of course, the higher-ups of the Phoenix Cry sect were also proud and conceited. Everyone felt that only their own disciples could stand out from the crowd and stand out from the crowd. These arenas would definitely become the catalysts for the growth of their disciples. The elders of the Phoenix Cry sect returned to their courtyards with satisfaction with the 2,000 disciples. All of them were so happy that their mouths were crooked. The Residence of Nine Supremes did not cheat. There were at least hundreds of top-notch geniuses among them. The others who were slightly less qualified were also the best of the best. Such a high-quality disciple, and such a large number of them, was something that the Phoenix Cry sect had never seen in the tens of thousands of years since its founding. This time they were really going to be rich. Ping Jinhua did not follow the main group of the Phoenix Cry sect back to the station. Instead, she pulled Yun Yang aside for a discussion. Sect Leader Yun, let's discuss something. Please speak, Sect Leader Ping. The last batch of disciples is the one with more than 100 people. In that group, there is a little girl with the Spirit Phoenix physique. That is our sect's highest cultivation method, the most suitable physique for cultivation. Ping Jinhua wore an expression that said, "You have to give it to me," and said, "Please give it to me, Sect Leader Yun." Yun Yang was speechless. I suspect, but I also believe that you have long planned to take advantage of this, haven't you? Why didn't you say so earlier? Why did you only ask for it after the selection was over? What should I do then? Can I not give it to you? Sect Leader Ping, Yun Yang looked constipated. You hurt me very much. You're really unbefitting of the leader of a sect with a middle-class celestial luck banner. Ping Jinhua smiled embarrassedly. I was indeed playing a trick on you this time, but I believe that you are a magnanimous person and will not lower yourself to the level of a woman like me. Well, for the sake of the sect's heritage, the leader of a sect with a middle-class celestial luck banner has admitted that she is a woman. Even if you have a grudge and are unwilling, what can you say? Sure. Yun Yang agreed with a bitter smile. Thank you. Ping Jianyue was overjoyed. Pride was something that could be forsaken when necessary, and the gains would still be quite plentiful. As long as he could obtain a sincere disciple with the spirit wind physique, what was a mere pride? That's all for today. I just arrived in Beijing with my wife, and I'll go to the traditional Chinese medicine hospital tomorrow. His wife would rather die than have surgery for her lump, so she could only treat it with traditional Chinese medicine first. Fortunately, she had been taking traditional Chinese medicine for 2 months and it was effective. Now she was taking the 4th month. Tomorrow she would go to the hospital to have her dressing changed. I also took the opportunity to register and have a look. AMP GT. Chapter 1197. The base of the residence of 9 Supremes, Phoenix Cry Sect. As Yun Yang said, the people of Phoenix Cry Sect were very satisfied with this base. It was 100 acres of land, with 2 small peaks and the rest of it was a flat plain. In the corner of a large plain, there were small courtyards, a total of 20 of them. All the living utensils inside were extremely exquisite, including tables, chairs, benches, beds, eating and drinking utensils. Everything was available. The higher-ups of Phoenix Cry Sect were extremely satisfied with the current situation. The original purpose of the Phoenix Cry Sect's trip this time had been successfully completed. Looking at the 2001 talented disciples who were at least at the first-class level, everyone was overjoyed. However, the world was not perfect, so how could things go as one wished? What followed was the troubles that came with happiness. At least at this stage, there was no solution to this kind of trouble, and it could only be slowly alleviated through gradual efforts. To be specific, these 2,000 little fellows who had just been recruited looked at the higher-ups of Phoenix Cry Sect with deep hatred, as if they were looking at their mortal enemies. Some of the little fellows even muttered in dissatisfaction. "We are the disciples of the residents of 9 Supremes, and we will officially join the sect soon. What do you want to do by bringing us here?" "I don't want to come at all. What bad luck. I've been looking forward to sect leader master's return every day so that I can join the residents of 9 Supremes. Now I've got this Phoenix Cry Sect. Phoenix Cry Sect. Phoenix Cry Sect. It sounds like a place for women. I've brought a son with me and it's so embarrassing for me to come here," the girl next to him protested. "Ari, what do you mean? What do you mean by women should come to Phoenix Cry Sect? We are all the disciples of the residents of 9 Supremes. It's just a moment of bad luck. Have you forgotten that the sect leader said that we can choose our own sect again after 10 years? We are temporarily unsuccessful now, but it doesn't mean that we won't have a chance. Don't be discouraged and destroy your own spirit." Third girl. "Don't accuse me wrongly. I'm not talking about you. How can you destroy your own spirit? I'm talking about those." He vaguely glanced at the women of the Phoenix Cry Sect. It's probably because of Si Huzi's good luck that he wasn't recruited here. So, this is enough for him to show off. It's just that we're going to be 10 years slower than him. I'm afraid it'll be hard for us to catch up. How dare you say that you won't let me lose my drive? Have you already lost your confidence? As long as I can return to the residence of 9 Supremes 10 years later, as long as I continue to work hard enough, I might be able to catch up to Dog 4. Me too. I have to work hard and look forward to the day I return to the residence of 9 Supremes. Me too, me too. I'm a member of the residence of 9 Supremes when I'm alive, and I'll be a member of the residence of 9 Supremes when I die. I'll never forget the sect and betray it. Umph. The group of little fellows tilted their heads, twisted their necks and pouted their lips. Their eyes were red, and there were even tears glistening in their eyes. Their expressions could only be described by words like bitter hatred and irreconcilable hatred, and they did not even try to hide it. This was the most infuriating thing. When it was time to count the names, they even twisted their necks and pouted their lips, pretending that they did not hear anything, causing the people of the Phoenix Cry Sect a headache. Fortunately, the people of the Phoenix Cry Sect were all experienced martial artists. Their experience and knowledge were top-notch, and because of Gan Tianyin, they knew some of these children's thoughts very well. They understood that they could not rush things, and that only a long time could bridge the gap between them bit by bit. After much effort, they finally managed to coax these little fellows to register in the name list, and they were given new names according to the seniority of the Phoenix Cry Sect. It was fortunate that the people of the Phoenix Cry Sect were so patient that in order to please these little fellows, they made the names of the little fellows grand and grand. The original names of Erhei, Sanyo, Wulung, Goxing, became Qingyun, Lingbo, Lingxiao, Zhuangzhi. Either it was meaningful, pleasant to the ear, ambitious, majestic and mighty, or full of the aura of an immortal. it was already very difficult for the higher-ups of the Phoenix Cry sect to come up with these names. They really put in a lot of effort, spared no effort, racked their brains and searched their guts. I'm not very knowledgeable in my life, but I've suffered because I'm not cultured. Now, I actually have to rack my brain to give these little brats nice names? The first elder said with tears and snot. My original name was Liergo. No one gave me another name. This sentence, no matter when, would have caused everyone to burst into laughter. However, after everyone had been busy for a few days, no one could laugh. They all felt the same way. Everyone had the same heart and their hearts were the same. How could there be any difference? At this time and place, there were a total of 24 masters and 2001 disciples. Each of the 23 elders was assigned 80 disciples, and the rest all belonged to the sect leader. This distribution should have been a happy result for everyone. However, in view of the children's unwillingness to cooperate, their hearts were not on the same page, and their faces were not on the same page. Even Ping Jinhue was helpless against this. She even felt depressed. The child with the spirit phoenix physique had already started to hate her, and it was a hatred that could not be any greater. After all, in the child's mind, he had already escaped the selection. What right did an old woman like her have to forcefully take him over? What did she want to do? Did she consider the feelings of the person involved? The others were just unlucky, but was he the unluckiest? The Phoenix Cry sect deliberately welcomed the new disciples with a policy of conciliation, but in front of this group of little things, they had no room to resist at all. They retreated step by step and suffered a great loss. This was mostly decided by the disciples' backgrounds. The disciples that the Phoenix Cry sect had recruited in the past were basically from well-off families. Due to their extraordinary talents, they had been coaxed by their parents and elders since they were young. Naturally, they had accepted the policy of appeasement from a higher class very well and thoroughly. However, what kind of people were these little brats that Yin-Yang had recruited? They were all people who had been tortured to death by human traffickers in the most difficult and cruel environment. They were the most sensitive and vigilant little brats. Appeasement? There must be an ulterior motive. If it was something else, the people of the Phoenix Cry sect would still have room to argue, but when it came to ulterior motives, they had to pinch their noses and admit it. It was not that they could not recruit disciples themselves, but they coveted the disciples' talents. They could not bear to see the residents of 9 Supremes, which did not have enough teachers, delay the future of many disciples, but it was just a pretentious excuse. This was an indisputable fact. It was indisputable. If they tried to defend themselves, they would only expose their own shortcomings and add to the ridicule. After struggling for a few days, there was basically no progress. Fortunately, the people of the Phoenix Cry sect were all experienced people, and they had long expected this situation. They had already made plans for a long time. Only Ping Jinhue decided that she could not stay any longer. According to the previous decision, 12 people will stay behind to watch over the disciples' cultivation. Take it slowly. We have a whole 10 years. There's no hurry. Ping Jinhue said, people's hearts are made of flesh. There are no disciples who can't be taught well, and there are no hearts that can't be warmed. It all depends on whether the master is dutiful or not. Even a stone will be warmed one day. After that, she left the room. The 12 people who stayed looked at each other, but all of their faces were pale, and they were no longer in high spirits. Everyone could speak the truth and everyone could change their tricks, but they were all different in their ingenuity. However, when it came down to the root, it was still the most difficult and the most difficult time. Gan Tianyan coughed and said, Senior Brother Li, these 2,000 disciples are all geniuses among geniuses. Thank you for your trouble. Senior Brother Li shook his head and said, Junior Sister Gan, these are the seed disciples, the geniuses among geniuses. It is already a great blessing for me to be able to watch and witness them with my own eyes. Besides, I'm not the disciple of the sect leader, so how can I overstep my authority? I really can't bear this responsibility. Gan Tianyan's eyes widened and she said, What did you say? You can't bear it? Why do I remember that you had solemnly vowed that you would groom a few outstanding successors, and that you would have no regrets for the rest of your life? Now you're saying this. Are you backing out? Unfortunately, it's too late. Even if I can't, I have to do it. Anyway, I'm only in charge of the 200 disciples in my branch. All of you will have to teach them yourselves. Didn't you all fight to stay? Didn't you think of what you should stay for? If you don't work hard to teach the disciples, are you really going to retire here? After saying this stiffly, she raised her head and walked out. Senior Brother Li sighed and said, Look at this temper. Luckily I didn't marry. Before he finished speaking, A beam of light flew in from outside. Senior apprentice Brother Li let out a strange cry and hurriedly dodged. He was shocked to see a sword stuck under his feet. Gan Qinyan's voice came from outside. If you dare to talk nonsense again, I will cut you into pieces. Do you think I won't dare? Everyone looked at each other and then burst into laughter. The laughter lasted for a long time, sweeping away the previous oppressive atmosphere. A woman said, Senior Brother Li, you have to be honest. Back then, Senior Sister Gan didn't even look at you. Of course, it's mainly because you were really ugly when you were young. I remember that I didn't really look at you. But once I did, I really couldn't eat. Now that I think about it, I still have a lingering fear. Senior Brother Li was speechless. In any case, the cooperation between the two sects had come to an end for the time being. The 10 peak-level Saint Kings and 2 Saint Emperors of the Phoenix Cry sect stayed in the residence of 9 Supremes. The disciples of the two great sects also began to cultivate step by step. No matter how reluctant the disciples in the Phoenix Cry sect were, their desire to become stronger would not change. Although everyone's little face was frowning and full of bitterness and hatred, they did not slack off in their cultivation, and their progress was extraordinary. This comforted the people of the Phoenix Cry sect and made them feel that this trip was not in vain. The disciples of the residence of 9 Supremes said, "Cultivate as hard as you can. The two sects have a martial competition every month. If you go up there and embarrass yourself, do you really have the nerve to do that?" The disciples of the Phoenix Cry sect were trying to appease them. Our sect's cultivation method is easy to learn but hard to master. Don't be too anxious in the beginning. Just do it step by step. Don't be discouraged even if you're not as good as others for the time being. Now is the time to build the foundation. Your current progress is already very fast. It was obvious that the cultivation methods of the two sects were completely different, almost opposite to each other. Nevertheless, at least on the surface, they were already on the right track. On this very morning, Yun Yang and Dong Qitian left the residence of 9 Supremes quietly. They soared into the sky and disappeared in the blink of an eye. I'll be taking the high-speed train home tomorrow morning. Sister Feng is fine, but I was shocked by the old Chinese doctor. The old man said that my stomach is already 50 years old. *CK. He prescribed a bunch of Chinese medicine to nourish the stomach and brewed it himself. Then, a bunch of guys said that I made up a lie to ask for leave again, so I showed them the prescription. In the end, after you guys saw the prescription, King recognized the epimedium at the end of the prescription. Now all the King Qidian are saying that my kidneys are bad. A few authors called me and asked, "Fengling, I heard that you're done for?" To the person who called me, I said, "CK, your grandpa. That prescription is good for the stomach. It was good for the stomach. It was good for the stomach. *CK. Amp GT. Chapter 1198. At this moment, Yun Yang and Dong Qitian were already 10,000 miles away from the residence of 9 Supremes. Along the way, the two of them were not in a hurry. With their speed, the journey of tens of thousands of miles could be covered in a day. However, since Yun Yang was not in a hurry, Dong Qitian was even less anxious. Along the way, it was like they were on a sightseeing tour. The Xinhuang world has changed a lot. Dong Qitian stood with his arms behind his back, gliding across the clouds. Thousands of mountains and rivers flitted past beneath his feet, but the landscape of the land was already in full view. Different from 4,000 years ago? Yun Yang teased from the side. It's more than just different. Dong Qitian's eyes were vast as he inhaled softly. The world has been turned upside down. Elder Dong, it has been more than a year and you haven't gone out many times. Yun Yang deliberated over his choice of words and said faintly, "What you're afraid of is that things remain the same, but people have changed, right?" Dong Qitian smiled and said, "That's right. I haven't been around for thousands of years. My family, disciples, friends, children, family, are all gone. When one gets older, the more it is like this, the easier it is to be sad. Every time I find a familiar place, there is no one I know anymore. That kind of sadness is the most desolate." Dong Qitian chuckled softly. There seemed to be frost gathering between his brows. "Yun Yang, do you know what makes a man old? Why do people grow old?" Yun Yang frowned. This includes ordinary people who don't know martial arts, Saint Emperors, Saint Venerables, and Saint Emperors. Dong Qitian's voice was indifferent. "Why do people age?" Yun Yang frowned. There were countless things he could say if he wanted to continue the conversation, but he knew that Dong Qitian must have a reason for saying that. The frost between Dong Qitian's brows grew thicker. "Heaven is heartless, but heaven is not old. People have feelings, so they grow old." Man grows old for the sake of love. Dong Qitian said faintly, to put it bluntly, it's the hardening of time and all sorts of things that lead to aging. If a person doesn't experience anything, doesn't experience life and death, doesn't experience anything. If one can maintain a pure and innocent heart from a young age, then no matter what, this person will age slower than others. Yunyang nodded slowly. This sentence made sense. And I am also afraid. Dong Qitian looked at the mountains in the distance with a distant gaze. I don't want to be reminded of this again and again. I won't be able to take it if I do that. It's not for longevity but because I don't want to bear it. Yunyang nodded silently. Dong Qitian had been staying in the residence of 9 Supremes all this while. Actually, I think that aging has something to do with it, but not very much. Even if you can maintain a pure and innocent heart for your entire life. For example, a fool who doesn't know anything will live a muddle-headed life, but he will also grow old and die. Yunyang spoke slowly. One has to experience everything in life. Only then can one see through the mundane world and walk to the peak in one's heart. Throughout the ages there have been countless heroes, but no matter how much they pursued immortality, most of them were buried in the soil. Many of them chose the path of emotionlessness and desolation, Yi Zichen said. Yunyang said slowly, it's the same path that Senior Dong is taking now, but their paths will come to an end as they walk. Dong Qitian frowned in silence, his eyes deep in thought as he said slowly, what do you mean? Yunyang spoke bluntly, what I mean is, Senior, you're walking the wrong path. The more you run, the more you'll feel like a block in your heart. In this world, we must treasure what we should treasure and protect what we don't want to lose with our lives. This is what we should and must do. However, we must let go of what we've lost. Treasure what we should treasure and protect what we don't want to lose with our lives. We must let go of what we've lost. Dong Qitian shuddered. The path that Senior is taking is already beyond the realm of celestial beings. Yunyang enunciated each word clearly, I'm afraid that you'll hold yourself back if you're complacent now. Just like what you've said, Senior, love is everything in the mundane world. We can't be heartless, but we can't block our path just because we're afraid of being heartless. If Senior goes on like this, I'm afraid this realm will be the end. However, if we can see through this, the supreme path will be just around the corner. Dong Qitian fell silent. Along the way he didn't say another word. However, Yunyang's words were still echoing in his heart. When the Lei family's courtyard came into sight, Dong Qitian suddenly heaved a long sigh. His exhalation was accompanied by a faint, dark gray gas. At this moment, Yunyang could clearly feel endless sorrow, pain, reluctance, regret, and guilt. Countless emotions that could drive a person insane were spat out of Dong Qitian's mouth in a miraculous manner. Dong Qitian exhaled and was silent for a long time. However, Yunyang could feel that Dong Qitian's aura, who was beside him, was rising continuously. After a long time, Dong Qitian asked softly, Yunyang, you're not that old. Why do you have such an epiphany? He chuckled self-deprecatingly. Most of the time, the onlooker sees the game more clearly than the person involved. However, you're a little too young. Yunyang was silent for a moment. Pain flashed across his eyes as he said slowly, it's because what I've lost is much more than what you've lost. If I can't learn to let go, I'm already beyond redemption now. He said calmly, Senior, loyalty will always be in your heart, but you don't have to remind yourself of it all the time. Dong Qitian was visibly moved. That's right. He could feel that his soul had been ascending step by step in these few days. His state of mind was much more relaxed. The mountains and rivers around him seemed to be filled with beauty. It was indescribably pleasing to the eye, no longer as lifeless as before. Is this the place? He asked with a smile. Yunyang was relieved as well. Dong Qitian's tone was light, and there was even a hint of a smile in it. Although it did not mean that the knot in his heart had been untied, it was already much better than before. Yes, this is the place. Yunyang nodded. This is the place where I met Bai Bingxian. A little cat demon. Dong Qitian smiled faintly. Might not be a little cat demon. We'll talk after you find them. All right. Yunyang followed the initial arrangement and found the direction after a brief inspection. If I'm not mistaken, it's where I set it up. Let's go. Dong Qitian said faintly and rolled his sleeves. With a swoosh, Yunyang felt a flash before his eyes, and he had already crossed the mountains and rivers, arriving at the top of a mountain 7,000 miles away. Teleportation. Yunyang's eyes were practically green. Dong Qitian's move was beyond Yunyang's expectations. This was a true godly move. teleporting 7,000 miles in an instant without batting an eyelid. It was absolutely appalling. This should be about the same, right? Yun Yang sensed it and was rather speechless. We still have to go back a little. How much? About 800 miles. His vision blurred again before he could finish his sentence. They had arrived at a dense forest. Yun Yang had even discovered traces of Bai Bingshan and the others with his deific consciousness. If Elder Dong were to assist me with all his might when I'm on the road in the future, wouldn't I be able to cross mountains and rivers in the blink of an eye? Yun Yang's imagination ran wild. I'm just showing you this time. As for the future, don't even think about it. Dong Qitian snorted and rolled his eyes. Bai Bingshan and the others were waiting day and night for the haunting soul that suddenly appeared and disappeared. For more than a month, the haunting soul had appeared 3 to 4 times, but it was only a hair's breadth away each time. Although the black-robed man had been right beside them twice, the haunting soul had appeared suddenly and escaped even faster. Even the black-robed man's attack was futile. He had already caught it, but when he opened his hand there was nothing there. He did not know when it had disappeared without a trace. Out of the 4 consecutive times he had caught nothing twice. The black-robed man was starting to doubt his own life. Bai Bingshan can catch it so easily. I've locked the space, imprisoned the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, and sealed the spirit vein of the mountains and rivers, but it's still not enough? Now Bai Bingshan was even more confident in Yun Yang. Sect leader Yun's setup was indeed impressive. This cooperation should not be a loss. Now, the black-robed man was afraid that he would lose his haunting soul, so he hid far away on a big tree that was bathed in sunlight. Below him, Bai Bingshan and the others spread out, crawling in the dark forest, not moving an inch. Right in the middle, in the darkest spot, were a few sets of white bones. Scattered spiritual energy was scurrying around like headless flies, but it could not travel more than 100 feet away. In order to lure the nightmare soul, the black-robed man came out of the mountain for a day and a night. He massacred 2 to 3 sects in the vicinity, as well as more than 10 groups of bandits that gathered in the forest. There were thousands of souls that were captured by him, broken and thrown here. The entire forest was already filled with the cries of ghosts and the air was eerie. With such a rich spiritual energy, if there was really a haunting soul around, it would definitely come. This was the best method of capturing a haunting soul that had been passed down in the bound of universe. It was absolutely foolproof. The place was filled with ghosts. Bai Bingshan dared not move. Although she knew it was fake, she could not let the cat out of the bag. Once she was suspected by the black-robed man, she would be finished. Freedom and revenge aside, she would even lose her life in an instant. A shadow floated over at an extremely fast speed. Haunting soul. From afar, the black-robed man instantly concealed his presence again. The previous 2 times, because his presence disturbed the haunting soul, he left before it even arrived. He was filled with regret. This time he could not make the same mistake. Bai Bingshan also noticed it. Her palms were also sweating. Don't let me catch you. If I catch you, I will be exposed. But at this moment, the drifting haunting soul suddenly sped up and charged into the eerie place. Bai Bingshan heard a clap of thunder in her ears. Catch! She subconsciously pounced forward, her white clothes flashed and she grabbed it. The haunting soul did not seem to be able to escape in time, or perhaps there was something on Bai Bingshan that attracted it. It did not resist, and instead, when it was about to be caught, it seemed to rush towards Bai Bingshuan's hand. In the next moment, a cloud of black smoke was already caught in Bai Bingshuan's hand. The black-robed man looked from afar. The last trace of doubt in his heart instantly disappeared. It seemed like the deathly air on Bai Bingshan was indeed what the haunting soul liked the most. With a flash of his black robe, he crossed thousands of feet and appeared in front of Bai Bingshan. He stretched out his hand. Let me see. Bai Bingshan felt her mind go blank. How did she catch it? How did she catch it? She was doomed now. With a pale face, she stretched out her trembling hand. She opened her fair and tender palm, and suddenly, a mass of black smoke, which had already taken on a substantial form, twisted and wriggled in her palm like a snake. The black-robed man cackled and reached out to grab it. She was still praising, good stuff. At this moment, a ray of light suddenly shot out. From the black smoke, an extremely dazzling saber radiance suddenly burst out. Without the slightest hesitation, the saber slashed towards the black-robed man. The black-robed man snorted in a hurry, casually blocking the attack with his outstretched hand. With a clang, there was only a thin trace of blood on the black-robed man's hand. Then a cloud of mist evaporated and the trace disappeared instantly. The black smoke on the opposite side trembled abruptly and retreated 100 feet, shaking all over. Then a loud cry rang out, "Quick attack!" It was Yun Yang's voice. This attack was arranged by Dong Qitian to let Yun Yang try it out. However, once Yun Yang made his move, he knew that this person was not someone he could handle now. When the other party was completely defenseless, he used his full cultivation and the unparalleled sharpness of the blade of heaven's will to slash at the other party's hand. Yet, only a thin line of blood was left on it. This person's cultivation base was already at the pinnacle. Yun Yang could not gauge the level of the other party at all. The black smoke disappeared instantly and a light breeze drifted out. The black-robed man's gaze was eerie as he said coldly, "You're here and you still want to leave?" He reached out with his hand. With a loud boom, Yun Yang suddenly felt as if his surroundings were made of fine gold and mithril. The space had completely turned into a highly dense metal, and his wind cloud form could not be maintained at all. With a bang, he was squeezed out by the air, spitting out a mouthful of blood as his form was revealed. "So you're just a wet behind the ears." The black-robed man snorted, glaring at Yun Yang cruelly. "Junior, who are you?" Although Yun Yang's eyes could see that there was nothing around him, he could only feel the indestructible density of the space. He could not even move his feet, let alone escape. Only his mouth could move his entire body, and that was purposely left by the other party for him to reply. "I'm your grandfather," Yun Yang scolded. The black-robed man blinked. Suddenly, a cloud of black mist burst out of his eye sockets as he said faintly, "Die if you don't speak." The black mist rushed towards Yun Yang's eyes with a swoosh. At this moment there was a swoosh in the air. Dong Qitian's voice carried a hint of mockery as he said, "How domineering! Are all the members of the demon race so domineering now?" As the voice rang, Yun Yang felt the air around him regaining its flow. A black sleeve suddenly waved in front of him, and Dong Qitian's silhouette slowly appeared before Yun Yang. His eyes shone with a sharp glint as he said faintly, "Which one of the demon race are you?" Yun Yang focused his gaze and saw that the black-robed man who had been so arrogant earlier could no longer move. A hand, like an iron hoop, firmly clutched his throat. It was Dong Qitian's hand. Although the black-robed man was captured, there was no hint of panic on his face. His eerie eyes stared at Dong Qitian, and he actually let out an eerie chuckle, saying with great interest, "Dong Qitian?" Dong Qitian narrowed his eyes. "You recognize me?" The black-robed man chuckled strangely and said, "I recognize you. Do you find it strange? Then do you recognize this technique?" Chapter 1199. Dong Qitian frowned when he heard that the black-robed man recognized him. This was truly out of their expectations. For experts with profound cultivation bases like them, 4,000 years was not a long time. However, this not a long time was only suitable for the top-notch cultivators in the bound of universe. For the rest of the world, this time limit was so long that it was enough for the seas to turn into mulberry fields. Who knew how many dynasties had changed in the world? How many cycles? Originally he had thought that it was just a chance encounter, a chance to strike. Who would have thought that the target actually knew him? In that case he didn't know if this was a chance encounter or an ill-fated one. Just as Dong Qitian's mind was drifting with doubt, the black-robed man let out a strange cackle. His body exploded with a boom, turning into 9 black lines that escaped from Dong Qitian's shackled hand. In the blink of an eye they gathered again and stood in the air. Instead of diminishing, their power increased. Then he clenched his hand into a fist and punched out forcefully. "Dong Qitian, don't you recognize me?" As soon as this punch struck out, everywhere it passed, strange phenomena appeared successively. First, a golden dragon appeared, and then a ferocious tiger roared. The dragon and tiger shook their heads and wagged their tails in the air, circling back and forth. They looked mighty and insufferably arrogant. Dong Qitian took a closer look and was shocked to see that there was a blazing sun above the dragon's head, and a crescent moon on the tiger's body. It was a scene of the dragon leaping and the tiger leaping, the sun and moon in the same sky. Thoughts raced through Dong Qitian's mind before he finally wore a surprised expression. Ever since he was reborn he had never taken half a step back. For the first time he took 2 steps back before he countered with a punch. Both fists collided with each other, but there was not much of a commotion. There was not even a distinct sound of punches. Yun Yang, who had freed himself from the black robe, was shocked. He knew very well that Dong Qitian's cultivation base was far beyond what he knew. The black-robed man in front of him was actually a peerless expert who could go toe-to-toe with Dong Qitian. If that was the case, was his so-called plan not a joke? Just as Yun Yang was deep in thought, the punches that had collided with each other, the seemingly insignificant punch's true power was revealed. The aftermath of the punch caused the surrounding mountains and rivers to tremble. A few mountains in the distance also exploded with endless roars after this moment. Large pieces of rocks from the cliffs fell down. Obviously, it had caused a considerable range of landslides. Shockingly, the force of their fists had already arrived at an extremely high realm where it was restrained and didn't reveal its edge. It was truly shocking and horrifying. It was Yun Yang's first time witnessing a battle between two experts of such caliber. Dong Qitian's expression turned extremely sour after the clash as he hollered, "Dragon Tiger Soul! Sun Moon Seal! Soul Demon King, you are not dead yet." At this moment, Dong Qitian, whose thoughts were confirmed, broke out in cold sweat. However, the cold sweat was not for himself but for Yun Yang. Before the operation just now, Dong Qitian had asked Yun Yang to test the waters first, which was why Yun Yang had launched the ambush just now. The move was done with good intentions, to allow Yun Yang to gain more experience and have an additional chance to fight with a superior expert. After all, in Dong Qitian's opinion, Yun Yang's previous pretense was practically toying with the other party in the palm of his hand. Although it was an unintentional move, the other party's true ability was much stronger than Yun Yang's, but the disparity was not so great that there was not even room for him to test the waters. Furthermore, he was nearby. Even if the other party's ability was stronger than expected, he could still lend a hand and not let anything happen to Yun Yang. In spite of this, the truth was that the other party was actually an old demon that had never been seen in this world. How could Dong Qitian not be frightened? The Soul Demon King was an ancient demon, one of the top experts in the demon realm. Back in the pinnacle battle between the humans and the demon clan, both sides had unleashed their full strength, intending to end the battle in one fell swoop. Therefore, all the experts from both sides had participated in the battle, risking their lives to fight to the death. Both sides had the intention to destroy the other, so they came up with their own plans and resorted to every conceivable means. At the critical moment, the demon clan was about to break through the humans' defense and charge into the bound of universe. Once they entered, it would be a catastrophe. A human senior had hardened his heart and gathered 99 Saint Emperors. With the 99 Saint Emperors cultivation base and blood essence as the price, he set up the 99 demonic formation at the location where the demon clan entered and exited the bound of universe. The 99 demonic formation was an extreme formation that hurt oneself before hurting the enemy, because the foundation of this formation was the heroic sacrifice of 99 Saint Emperors. They sacrificed all of their souls, blood essence and cultivation base to form the foundation of the ultimate attack. Then, the other martial artists lured the demon clan wave after wave into the demonic formation that spanned 3,000 miles. Wave after wave they were killed. As it turned out, the sacrifice of the 99 Saint Emperors did not go to waste. The number of experts of the demon clan that were killed by this formation numbered in the millions. It was a glorious battle result. Furthermore, this formation had the terrifying property of increasing the power of the formation bit by bit as the number of demon clan experts killed increased. As more and more demon clan experts were killed, even if they were at the peak of the Saint Venerable level, once they entered the formation, they would be in a situation of certain death. After killing several Saint Venerables, the power of the formation increased again. It was already able to threaten the life and death of Saint Monarchs. Because of this, the Demon Emperor did not dare to be negligent anymore. He sent out a total of 8 Saint Monarch Old Demon Kings. Together with the 500,000 Demon Clan army, they charged into the formation. The result of this battle was that out of the 500,000 Demon Clan army, 430,000 died. Of the 8 Saint Monarchs, 1 died in battle, and 2 were so severely injured that they lost their cultivation base forever. Only then did the 99 demonic formation break. None of the human seniors who fought in the demonic formation survived. However, even if the 99 demonic formation was broken, the demon clan's vitality was greatly damaged, and the result was irreversible. Humans had taken the opportunity during this period of time to build the Bloody Soul Mountain, isolating the 2 realms of humans and demons. However, the affairs of the world were changeable. The old site of the demonic formation that destroyed thousands of demons had become the only channel that could connect the 2 realms. At the same time, in the broken 99 demonic formation, a peerless great demon was born. It was a special great demon that was born from the accumulation of boundless resentment after the death of countless demon clan members, and the formation's soul power could not overflow after it was destroyed. In other words, it was the soul demon. The so-called soul demon, as the name suggested, was a special life form that advanced by devouring souls. On the day the soul demon was born, heaven and earth changed color because of it. However, in a short time, it became a demon king, a great demon king, and a demon venerable. Its speed of advancement was something that few humans and demons could match. It was also because of this demon that the human side sent a total of 8 Saint Venerables to encircle and kill it. That was when Dong Qitian was still outside. It was the most tragic battle between humans and demons apart from the pinnacle of human and demon. Countless human experts encircled the soul demon. Among the 8 Saint Venerables at that time, Dong Qitian was the leader. In other words, Dong Qitian had seen with his own eyes that the soul demon was smashed into pieces and turned into ashes. Its soul should have been annihilated, never to be reincarnated. Now, however, this old demon was not dead. Not only was he not dead, but he had appeared alive in front of him, fighting against him. Tricky. Very tricky. Thinking back to his action of letting Yunyang attack first just now, it was extremely dangerous and critical. If the soul demon did not have the intention to ask questions and directly attack to kill, even if Dong Qitian attacked with all his might, he might not be able to save Yunyang in time. After the blow, the soul demon stared at Dong Qitian and suddenly let out a strange laugh. The black robe covering his head slowly fell, revealing a human face with slender eyes that seemed to contain endless evil. "Old friend, if you're not dead, how can I die?" The soul demon's slender eyes looked at Dong Qitian eerily. "Back then you, Supreme Saint equaling heaven, combined your 7 swords into one, broke my chest, broke my heart meridians, crushed my internal organs, kicked me 18 times in a row and crushed my skull. This old man hasn't fully returned such a deep friendship to you. How can I bear to die?" Dong Qitian regained his composure when he heard Hun Yao's words of extreme hatred. He chuckled and said, "Hun Yao, I'm truly surprised that you've escaped death and reappeared today. However, after that exchange just now, your cultivation base has regressed a lot compared to back then. You were not my opponent back then, and now you're even less of a match for me." The soul demon's eyes flickered, and after a pause, he retorted sarcastically, "It's only been a few years since this old man died and came back to life. It's only right that I'm far from being your opponent. If this old man could defeat you, why would I be wasting words with you now? Even if your cultivation base is far superior, so what? Can you, Dong Qitian, kill me alone?" Dong Qitian fell silent at once. The soul demon's own attributes were unique. Born from the demonic spirit of resentment, it possessed the ability of demonic primordial qi and qi incarnation. It was almost an all-pervasive existence. Dong Qitian had clearly captured it before, but the other party still managed to escape easily, which proved this point. In that battle back then, the 8 great supreme saints had gathered to use the heaven and earth cage technique to completely seal off the 4 dimensions and countless spaces. Only then could the soul demon be completely trapped. Only by locking down the location of its true body could it be killed. Now, it was only Dong Qitian alone. His cultivation base was far superior, but it was another matter to completely block the soul demon's escape route. Both sides knew the foundation of the other's strength, so there was no need to argue and add insult to injury. In other words, even if the soul demon was now on his last breath, Dong Qitian alone was still unable to keep the other party. "It's not up to you to decide whether I can kill you or not. We'll only know after we've fought. After all, we're old friends who meet again after a lifetime. It doesn't make sense not to fight to liven things up." Dong Qitian shook his head and chuckled. The soul demon said coldly, "It turns out that all of this is your plot. What a coincidence." Dong Qitian did not deny it and said indifferently, "My original intention was just to catch a demon king, but I never thought that I'd catch a big shark. I actually caught an old acquaintance, an old flame. I really don't know if I should say it's a coincidence or not." The soul demon said, "You want this little cat demon?" Dong Qitian narrowed his eyes. "What do you mean?" The soul demon laughed. "Why are you pretending to be confused? You've used so many tricks. Isn't it just to catch this little cat demon and bring it back?" Dong Qitian pondered in his heart, his expression unchanged as he said indifferently, "Of course I'm going to keep this little cat demon. However, if you, soul demon, don't stay, this little cat demon won't live long." The soul demon frowned and asked warily, "What do you want?" Dong Qitian said, "You and I know each other's strength. Although I can't kill you, it's not difficult to injure you again." He narrowed his eyes and said faintly, "Soul demon, you've recuperated for thousands of years after your last serious injury. If I were to injure you again, I wonder how long you'll need to recuperate? Thousands of years? Or tens of thousands of years?" As soon as Dong Qitian said that, the soul demon hesitated. After a long time, the soul demon gritted his teeth and said, "For the sake of our old friendship, I'll give in to you this time, Saint Master equaling heaven. Just tell me your conditions, won't you?" Dong Qitian said, "I have two requests. The first is to remove the seal on the cat demon. The second, I'll ask you a question and you must answer truthfully." The soul demon snorted and said, "The first is no problem. Ask the second, I'll consider it." "What's your relationship with Lei Qianli?" Dong Qitian asked. The soul demon's eyes revealed a sly glint as he said softly, "I can answer you directly. Lei Qianli and I are also old acquaintances. This is the truth." Then he laughed and flicked his hands. A few black lines rose from Bai Bingxian and the other cat demons and returned to the soul demon's hands. Then he leaped up and said, "Dong Qitian, you'd better live well. There's still time to settle the score between us." Amidst the laughter, the soul demon burst like a soap bubble under the sunlight in the air. This move was inexplicably strange, but in fact, it was marvelous and amazing. "Elder Dong, what is this? The soul demon?" Yun Yang was still shaken and terrified. "It's amazing." The situation just now could be regarded as one of the greatest dangers Yun Yang had ever experienced in his life. He was infinitely close to death. Under the irresistible power of the soul demon, even if Yun Yang had the ability to change and the support of the manifestation powers, there was still no room for him to turn the situation around. He could only wait for his death. And this was just a casual move from the soul demon. What's more, listening to the conversation between Dong Qitian and the big demon, it was clear that the big demon's current state had fallen to the lowest point of his life, and the big demon was even inferior to Dong Qitian in the past when he was at his peak. Now that Dong Qitian was stronger than he was in the past, how strong could Dong Qitian be? In the past, Yun Yang's understanding of Dong Qitian's cultivation base was beyond his understanding. Now that he thought about it, he had clearly underestimated it. Dong Qitian's cultivation base should be far beyond his understanding, or perhaps it was the pinnacle of this world. The soul spirit is a special life form rarely seen since ancient times. It's probably a place where too much power of the soul has gathered. Because of the special terrain of the place or the protection of the formation, it's difficult to disperse, thus turning it into spiritual consciousness. The soul demon, on the other hand, is a step further than ordinary soul spirits because the power of the soul that gives birth to its spirit is all demonic, so its nature is closer to that of a demon, possessing both characteristics. Dong Qitian's expression was solemn. Although the soul demon doesn't have the innate qi, the bones of its father's soul, and the flesh of its mother's blood, and it can't cultivate to the pinnacle level in its lifetime, the soul demon is derived from the characteristics of a life form. It has many elusive means, almost no different from an immortal body. It's extremely difficult to deal with. Take the old demon as an example. Although it's impossible for him to cultivate to the level of a saint even if he exhausts his entire life, as long as he ascends to the pinnacle of the supreme saint, even ordinary saint lords would find it difficult to do anything to him. There's one more thing. As long as it's alive, including the pinnacle of a saint or even a half-saint, their control of the power of the soul is absolutely incomparable to the soul demon. Dong Qitian sighed softly. This is a peerless scourge. I didn't expect that when the 8 of us joined forces and crushed every inch of his power of the soul into dregs, he could still come back to life and stir up trouble again. Then how can we kill him? Yun Yang asked cautiously. The soul demon comes and goes without a trace. Thousands of miles away within a breath's reach, ever-changing, it's difficult to find his true form. Invulnerable to blades and spears, invulnerable to water and fire. If there's danger, he'll be gone in a flash. The vast heaven and earth, the white clouds and the breeze, as long as he comes into contact with the various manifestations of heaven and earth, he can disappear with the momentum and be hard to find again. Yun Yang thought as Dong Qitian spoke. When Dong Qitian finished, Yun Yang's expression became very subtle and very pleasant. It was wonderful. Thousands of miles away within a breath's reach, ever-changing, it's difficult to find his true form. Invulnerable to blades and spears, invulnerable to water and fire. If there's danger, he'll be gone in a flash. The vast heaven and earth, the white clouds and breeze, the various manifestations of heaven and earth, was this talking about the soul demon, or Yun Yang? Chapter 1200. How come the more I listen the more guilty I feel? Yun Yang muttered in his heart. It looks like I'll have to be more careful in the future. I shouldn't use my manifestation powers if I can. What if I meet a hothead of the older generation who thinks I'm the soul demon and kills me? That would be a great injustice. Dong Qitian's expression was solemn as he said, when the soul demon was wreaking havoc, this old man and the soul demon had fought hundreds of times. I can be said to be experienced and not weaker than anyone. Although I was only a beginner-level supreme saint at the time, I could suppress the soul demon and gain the upper hand. Victory was in my grasp. But against the soul demon, the so-called upper hand is useless. The so-called victory is in your grasp, but it's just wishful thinking. It's not realistic at all because no matter how many times you break it, the other party can recover in the next moment, and it'll be back to its best state. Even if this old man dies of exhaustion on the spot, I still can't kill him. If the battle drags on until the end, who knows who will be the one to escape? Dong Qitian laughed bitterly. The soul demon's real combat power is not as good as mine, but this old man would rather fight a saint than fight the soul demon alone. You must know that even against a saint, the odds of winning are slim, but at least it's a real battle. Fighting the soul demon, on the other hand, is like a man fighting against the sky and the air in a frenzy. The feeling of having no place to exert force, especially when you have no place to exert force from the beginning to the end, is really crushing. Yunyang coughed and said, if so, how did you trap him and inflict heavy damage on him back then? According to Senior's description of the soul demon's characteristics, a siege is even more difficult to work. Instead, there will be negligence. Dong Qitian snorted, a thoughtful look in his eyes as he said, back then the unexpected rise of the soul demon almost led to another tragedy of the human race after the ultimate battle between humans and demons. However, we were unable to form a sufficient threat to the soul demon. In the end, it was Sacred Heart Palace's Lei Qinli who invited everyone to join in the great cause to eradicate the soul demon. Originally, as you said, the soul demon's attribute is special, so a siege is often more difficult to be effective. However, Lei Qinli's cultivation of Azure Sky Thunder is one of the few magical cultivation methods that can make the power of the soul stagnate for a moment, and it is also the only means that can form an effective restraint on the soul demon. In addition, Fierce Gale Saint's temporary control of the wind further constitutes a hindrance. Taking advantage of the short gap when Deep Earth Saint turned the ground under his feet into leakless steel, he sealed the soul demon into a special isolated space constructed by the combination of water and fire of Soft Water Saint and Fiery Saint's water and fire, which is extremely opposite but compatible with each other. Then, Jade Sword and Golden Saber Saint attacked and strangled, as well as the complete removal of traces of my soul. In the beginning, Lei Qinli came to me. At that time, his cultivation base was inferior to mine, so he suggested that I be the leader and join in the righteous cause. Dong Qitian slowly recounted in frustration. In that battle, Jade Sword and Golden Saber joined forces to attack the Soul Divine Sect and successfully lured the soul demon out. After a fierce battle, the battle formation gradually moved to the triangular Stormy Gorge. Because the triangular Stormy Gorge is filled with clouds and mist all year round, the soul demon can move freely in that place. It is almost the best battlefield for him, so he did not care much about the change of location. Instead, he enjoyed it. What he didn't know was that the dual masters of water and fire had already spent all their cultivation in a specific place to form a special space where water and fire converged, which was the nemesis of his incarnation. Then the rest of us worked together to further seal the 4 dimensions of heaven and earth, leaving no loopholes. Then the thunder and lightning struck and paralyzed his body. Only then was his spirit locked in the form of flesh. I took the opportunity to strike and crushed his brain and heart. Then, the moment I stopped, the Jade Sword and the Golden Saber joined hands and cut the soul demon into more than 20,000 pieces of flesh. I was still not at ease. It was not until all the pieces were smashed and made sure that every drop of blood and every piece of flesh had been refined by the thunder and lightning that the situation ended. After that, Lei Qinli accumulated merits and was promoted to become the Grand Elder of the Sacred Heart Palace. The others then went their separate ways and went their separate ways. It was on the way back that I encountered. Sigh, I was imprisoned for 4,300 years. Dong Qitian chuckled bitterly. I didn't expect that after 4,300 years for the first time in the martial world, I would actually encounter the most disgusting opponent of that year. Indeed, the affairs of the world are like a game of chess, unpredictable. Yunyang was dumbfounded for a long time. Wasn't such a method a little too much? The confluence of water and fire to build an extremely opposite special space? Was there such a possibility? But if there was, it was indeed the greatest nemesis of wind and cloud. Then, the thunder would strike the earth, the saber and the sword would strike together, and the thunder would forge every inch of flesh and blood. It seemed like this kind of method could be used for reference on himself, okay? Moreover, if this method was really used on him, he was afraid that he would not even be able to survive the first step, because he did not have the terrifying recovery ability of Soul Demon. He would definitely disappear directly in the first place. Yunyang shuddered. He could not think about this, it was too scary. He was timid, so there was no need to scare him like this. That's not right. Since the assassination was set up so carefully, how could the Soul Demon still have a chance to come back from the dead? This? Yunyang asked cautiously. Dong Qitian's eyes were full of heaviness. The previous assassination was all perfectly realized without any loopholes, especially the last thunder forging. As long as we follow the established practice, even if the Soul Demon had 1,000 lives, it would be hard for him to escape death. Fierce Gale Saint Master, Thick Earth Saint Master, Soft Water Saint Master, and Raging Fire Saint Master were here to set up the foundation of the killing trap. They didn't participate in the fatal attack, so there's nothing wrong with them. The joint attack of Jade Sword Saint and Golden Saber Saint completely shattered the Soul Demon's spiritual body, so the two of them are not much of a suspect. The subsequent sweep of the traces of the soul. Logically speaking, this step is the easiest step to make mistakes, but the one who carried out this step is this old man with the highest cultivation base among the 8. I'm confident that there are no mistakes. What's more, when I swept with all my might, Jade Sword and Golden Saber confirmed it again and again, completely eliminating the possibility of negligence. Then there is only the last step. Thunder forging. Dong Qitian murmured, the only possibility for the Soul Demon to survive is that there is a flaw in the last step of the thunder forging process, where the soul and spirit are destroyed. Logically speaking, the Soul Demon that is still alive must have something to do with Lei Qianli. Dong Qitian frowned. But Lei Qianli was the one who initiated the whole plan. Who would have a problem? He shouldn't have a problem. Yunyang smiled and said, regarding this junior has a little insight that may be able to solve senior's doubts. In the Sacred Heart Palace, there must have been more than one person competing for the position of Great Elder. After all, apart from the Temple Lord and the 2 Deputy Temple Lords, the Great Elder is the 4th most powerful person in the Sacred Heart Palace. I believe that such a high position, even in the entire bound of universe, can be considered a high-ranking position of honor. How could it not attract covetous eyes? If my guess is correct, there must have been several people competing for this position, and Lei Qianli did not have an advantage among the competitors. He may even have been a relatively weak party. Under such circumstances, Lei Qianli had no chance of winning. If he hadn't made a great contribution, he would have had no chance at all. May I ask Senior if this is the truth? Dong Qitian pondered and said, back then, the Great Elder of the Sacred Heart Palace was approaching the end of his life and had the intention of giving up his position to someone more capable. Regarding the Great Elder's vacancy, there were indeed several people who were qualified and willing to ascend to the position of Great Elder. But I'm not very clear about who exactly they were. Yunyang was sensitive enough to notice that Dong Qitian's eyes flickered a little when he said this, but since Dong Qitian was unwilling to elaborate in detail, Yunyang would only provoke each other and not help. Now, however, he knew that there was indeed something wrong with the Sacred Heart Palace's Lei Qianli. But as long as he could confirm this point, it was already a worthwhile trip. Senior, should we inform the Sacred Heart Palace about this? Yunyang asked cautiously after some thought. Unexpectedly, Dong Qitian replied blankly, inform the Sacred Heart Palace for what? Yunyang could not react in time and rolled his eyes. Old Master Dong Qitian, was indeed a martial arts fanatic of his generation. He was not the least bit worried about playing with people's minds. Now that we can basically confirm that there's something wrong with Lei Qianli, inform the Sacred Heart Palace to take precautions. It's better to be safe than sorry. After all, it involves the demon race, not just one family. Yunyang muttered to himself. Do whatever you want. Dong Qitian was really not interested in this at all. To him, there was something wrong with Lei Qianli. It was simple, he could just kill him the next time they met. What other hidden dangers could there be if he was killed? What was the big deal? What was the point of spending so much effort and thinking about it? Wouldn't it be better to spend more time cultivating? Nothing in this world was more important than the path of cultivation. Dong Qitian did not want to think about anything other than martial cultivation, but Yunyang could not. He had to consider the pros and cons of the future. Should he inform the current case? There were definitely benefits to informing, but there seemed to be disadvantages as well. There was a traitor hidden in the Sacred Heart Palace for many years. Did the current temple leader Zhang Wufei really not know? Was it a good thing or a bad thing to expose Lei Qinli? Yunyang suppressed this thought in his heart. He would think about it again if there was a chance in the future and if he could use it. After all, Yunyang might not even trust Zhang Wufei, the temple leader of the Sacred Heart Palace. He realized that there were too many strange things in the bounded universe. Who was real and who was fake, who was right and who was wrong, no one dared to say that they could really tell. Without a certain degree of understanding, even if one had the all-seeing eyes, how could one clearly see an old monster that had lived for tens of thousands of years? Even if Yunyang had the reputation of supreme wit, he still did not have the confidence to do so. At this moment, Bai Bingxian had already stood up, quietly standing at the side with her 5 subordinates. Seeing that Yunyang seemed to be deep in thought, she was very sensible not to disturb him. When she saw Yunyang turn his head, she hurriedly bowed with joy. "Thank you, sect leader Yun, for your help." At this moment she really felt relaxed. The restraints on her body and the murderous intent that shone upon her life had been completely removed. This situation made her want to cry tears of joy. How many years had she been looking forward to this day? The day when her shackles were all gone. Previously, not to mention vindicating the elder ancestor and avenging her family, even her own life was in the hands of someone else. That kind of precarious pressure had put her in an atmosphere of despair at all times, tormenting her. Now that she had abruptly gotten rid of her shackles, she was overjoyed, but there was also a subtle sense of unreality. She was in a trance, as if she was dreaming. "What are you thanking me for?" Sigh. Yunyang sighed faintly about Bai Bingxian with a faint hint of bitterness. He finally realized that his scheming methods were not completely useless in the bounded universe, but at least for many people, there was little room for them to use. For example, Old Fiend Hun. Yunyang felt that he had Old Fiend Hun in the palm of his hand with his previous arrangements. This time, he had even brought Dong Qitian with him, confident that victory was in his grasp and the overall situation was within his grasp. However, even though he had the advantage of scheming against Old Fiend Hun, he was still almost defeated in one move. With the absolute gap in ability, no matter how good the arrangement was, no matter how perfect the planning was, it was still not enough and could only sigh helplessly. Another example was Dong Qitian. This boss's behavior pattern had always exceeded Yunyang's estimation. He clearly knew that the failure of his plan to eliminate the demon in the past was due to someone with ulterior motives, and he had even locked onto someone with ulterior motives, but he had no intention of taking further action. At least in Yunyang's opinion, this person was simply incomprehensible. There was also the matter of Bai Bingxian. At least for now, Yunyang had never considered rescuing Bai Bingxian at this time. On the contrary, Bai Bingxian leaving with Soul Demon was the ideal situation that Yunyang was looking forward to. All his arrangements for Bai Bingxian were to keep Bai Bingxian by Soul Demon's side. In the future, no matter what news there was or what Soul Demon did, he would know. This could maximize the role of an undercover agent. Now it was all right. As soon as Dong Qitian came forward, Soul Demon actually sent Bai Bingxian over, along with the one-stop service of lifting the ban. It was simply the best service with the best price-performance ratio. At least 10,000 divine beasts were galloping and roaring in Yunyang's heart at this moment. What was this? It was such a casual move, but it had directly cut off a series of arrangements that he had made before and ended prematurely. Why did Senior Dong, as soon as you made your move, Soul Demon gave up Miss Bai and the others? Is it really just because of the gap in strength and the threat of Senior? Yunyang asked curiously. Of course, there was also a lot of regret and frustration in this question. Dong Qitian scratched his head at Yunyang's question. He really just had a sudden whim about this matter. His original intention of coming here and the subsequent changes still did not include this little cat demon. It was really just a lucky hit, a mistake with a mistake. Girl, who are you? Dong Qitian did not beat around the bush and asked directly. Bai Bingxian was smart and said, "This junior is Bai Bingxian. My ancestor is the 9 Lives Cat King." Dong Qitian coughed and said, "So, you're the descendant of the 9 Lives Cat?" He looked up for a long time and said, "So, you're the descendant of the 9 Lives Cat?" He looked up at the sky for a long time and said, "Does Soul Demon often bleed you after he caught you? Does he want you to breathe to the moon according to the 9 Lives Cat's unique cultivation method every full moon night? Does he want to detect the progress of your cultivation method?" "Yes." "Does he often ask you to kill? And to detect the turbulence of your soul after that?" "Yes." "Has he ever pulled out your bones?" "Yes." "Are you the only direct descendant of the 9 Lives Cat's bloodline now?" "Yes." "Are you?" Dong Qitian asked 7 or 8 questions in a row, and Bai Bingxian gave a direct affirmative answer without hesitation. Dong Qitian heaved a long sigh of relief and said, I see. It's really a stroke of luck, but it's just a coincidence. It's a good coincidence, too good a coincidence. Chapter 1201. Dong Qitian smiled. As the saying goes, a small clue reveals a big picture. This soul demon thinks that I've seen through his purpose. He doesn't want to bear the price of being seriously injured again. Naturally, he has to give up the biggest benefit in his hands. Otherwise, he's afraid that I won't let it go and cause more trouble. Yunyang had vaguely guessed it, but he still asked, What do you mean by this, senior? Can you explain in detail? To put it simply, this girl's identity is very remarkable. Although it's difficult for you to understand its importance and you can't use it, it's equivalent to a huge treasure for every powerhouse above the level of Saint Venerable. Yun Yang's expression changed and he said in surprise, This junior has also probed this woman's body with his own spiritual power. Although I found some abnormalities, I didn't see anything more. What senior says, it's already commendable that you can detect some abnormalities. It's very likely that her body hides the 9 lives demon cat's path to reincarnation. The reason why Soul Demon captured her is that he noticed her abnormality and created all kinds of opportunities for her to make her cultivation base advance by leaps and bounds. With Old Demon Soul's experience, especially in the aspect of the soul, he only needs to observe the progress of her path of Tao to infer the 9 lives demon cat's path to reincarnation. All Supreme Saint Venerable martial artists lack such opportunities. Especially demons like Soul Demon that aren't raised with flesh and blood, they're the most lacking. In Old Demon Soul's opinion, this old man and he haven't seen each other for thousands of years. Suddenly meeting here and coming prepared, he obviously has an ulterior motive. However, he doesn't have anything worthy of my ambush at the moment, so he naturally thinks that I'm here for this little cat demon. Dong Qitian snorted. This soul demon is quite straightforward, giving up the little cat demon directly. At the same time, it's also to make me give up the idea of keeping him. Without the little cat demon as a burden, even if I go all out, I can't take his life. But he doesn't know that I don't need him anymore. Dong Qitian rolled his eyes, but the pride in his expression had already betrayed his current state of mind. Yunyang, on the other hand, rolled his eyes, feeling disgusted as if he had been F***ked. It was just a guess, and you ruined my plan without any hesitation. Who would have thought that the key to breaking the deadlock was actually on Bai Bingxian, a seemingly insignificant and weak little cat demon? She's just a small chess piece in my plan, okay? I'm going to vomit blood, I'm really going to. Yunyang moaned weakly. Looking at the delighted and relaxed Bai Bingxian, Yunyang did not have the energy to retort. Sect leader Yun, what should we do next? I'll listen to you. Bai Bingxian said in a friendly manner. Bai Bingxuan's gratitude towards Yunyang, who had saved her from the abyss of suffering, was sincere. What to do? Yunyang swallowed his anger. What can I ask you to do? Do you think you're still worth anything now? First, you can't follow Soul Demon to provide me with information. Second, you can't break into the Sacred Heart Palace to provide me with information. Third, you can't return to the Demon Clan to inquire about information for me. Fourth, you are so weak. Fifth, you are still so stupid. Tell me, what can I make you do? What can I make you do? I'm also having a headache now. Can I bring you back to raise you? Yunyang, you can't ignore this, Miss Bai. Why don't you bring her back to the residence? Dong Qitian said meaningfully. Yunyang grew angrier and angrier. Dong Qitian, old man Dong, are you sent by God to put me down? You can't bully me like this. I'll help her to the end. Miss Bai has contributed a lot to the success of this plan. How can I give up helping her? Yunyang said without hesitation. Although he did not know what this Miss Bai was used for, let alone what her specialty was and what kind of effect she could play if he really brought her back, Yunyang knew from Dong Qitian's expression that she must be of great use. Miss Bai, if you have nowhere else to go now, why don't you settle down in my residence of 9 Supremes first? Yunyang asked. Bai Bingxuan's face was a little excited, but also a little perturbed. She asked hesitantly with a little inferiority, Can I? Of course you can. My humble residence welcomes you with your presence. It's my honor. Bai Bingxian was unusually excited. Now that the situation was clear, they could not go back to their original lodgings. They did not even have a place to stay. It was rare for Yunyang to open the door for them, so they could just go on their way empty-handed. Bai Bingxian knew a lot about Yunyang. She knew that Yunyang was the newly promoted Supreme of the residence of 9 Supremes, a sect with a middle-class celestial luck banner. A sect with a middle-class celestial luck banner was an extremely rare and valuable place to go. In terms of living environment, it was not much inferior to the place where she was born, the Nine Lives cat's old home before it declined. As for the other 5 cat demons, 3 women and 2 men, they were also extremely excited when they heard the news. Speaking of which, Bai Bingxian was a direct descendant of the Nine Lives demon cat and a person of high status, but that was then and this was now. Since a long time before she was born, the Nine Lives cat clan had already lost its former glory. To be more precise, it should be in a gradual decline with each passing day. The situation was getting more and more difficult with each passing day. When Bai Bingxian was born, the situation was even worse. As Miss Bai grew up little by little, the so-called glory of the clan became yesterday's daylily, like frozen water. Almost every day there were people in the clan who were unlucky and died. By the time she was about to reach adulthood, there was almost nothing left of the clan's foundation. The lineage of the Nine Lives cat began to flee, hoping to win a chance of survival and buffer. But in the end, it could be said that the first half of Bai Bingxian's life was immersed in the bitterness brewed by tragedy. From birth, she began to be careful, not even daring to cry loudly. When she grew up anxiously, she began to flee from the place of her birth. When she finally escaped, she fell into the hands of the demon soul. Along the way, she did not seem to have had a few days of peace. Now, even though Yun Yang's residence of 9 Supremes was only a middle-class celestial luck banner sect and was not in the eyes of the descendants of the orthodox demon clans, for Bai Bingxian, having such a place to settle down was enough to make her feel grateful and moved to tears. In fact, even if Yun Yang only provided her with a small valley with nothing, as long as she could live freely and steadily, Bai Bingxian would be satisfied. However, when she arrived at the residence of 9 Supremes and felt the actual condition of the place, Bai Bingxian was dumbstruck. Is this a paradise beyond the world? A paradise beyond the heavens? Meow meow meow. In her excitement, the little cat demon not only exposed the innate language of the cat clan, but also a pair of furry little ears appeared on her head, flickering and trembling. Her big round eyes were full of disbelief and indescribable. Looking at the spiritual herbs all over the mountain and feeling the refreshing spiritual qi of heaven and earth, Bai Bingxian could not help but tear up. After a meal, she went to the small courtyard assigned to her and lay on the soft bed, feeling the rich spiritual qi that was increasing her cultivation base even though she was just lying down. She sighed almost instinctively. This is the life of an immortal. Even if it kills me, I'm not leaving either. Bai Bingxian secretly made up her mind. For this wish she could not care less about what price she had to pay. Senior Dong, why do you want to bring this little cat demon back? Yun Yang sighed and looked at Dong Qitian in dissatisfaction. On the way back he finally understood what kind of girl Bai Bingxian was. When they had first met, Yun Yang had thought that she was a beauty that was as cold as an iceberg. She exuded an unapproachable aloofness from head to toe. In addition to her decisive judgment of the situation when they first met, Yun Yang had a good impression of her. Now, however, this is obviously a lazy cat. No, a bunch of lazy cats. What's the use? With Yun Yang's shrewdness, he should not have spoken to Dong Qitian directly with his emotions on his face. As soon as the 6 cat demons, led by Bai Bingxian, entered the residence of 9 Supremes, they behaved rather poorly, as if their bones had been extracted. Collectively, they became lazy, and even when they walked, there was a sense of awkwardness as if they did not want to move at all. If there was something to do, they would lie down. If there was nothing to do, they would lie down. That was secondary. After all, they were cultivators, so they should at least have daily cultivation. However, these cats did not have any intention of cultivating at all. As for the word hard work, that the residents of 9 Supremes revered the most, the cat demons' performance in this aspect was still passable. They were roaring loudly every day, "You must work hard. You must work hard. We must work hard to restore the supreme glory of the 9 Lives demon cat clan." Shouting 17 to 18 times a day was considered a minimum. The problem, however, was that this was the only thing they worked hard for the day. Other than shouting 17 to 18 times, they spent the rest of their time eating, sleeping, and roaming the entire residence of 9 Supremes territory happily and leisurely. Yun Yang had even suspected that these cat demons were putting on a show. After all, they were an alien race living under someone else's roof. It was not strange for them to put up some smokescreen, using it to erase the estrangement between themselves and the residents of 9 Supremes. Until one day Yun Yang saw with his own eyes that Bai Bingxian, the direct descendant of the 9 Lives demon cat who claimed to have a blood feud, actually chased the butterfly from the back of the mountain to the front of the mountain, then to the square, all the way to the residence of 9 Supreme's main peak, all the way to the residence of 9 Supreme's main peak. If it were not for the sky turning dark and Bai Bingxian returning to eat and rest, who knew how long this farce would have lasted? If this was still an act, Yun Yang would willingly be deceived without a word of complaint, even if he was deceived for the rest of his life. Faced with such a scene, Yun Yang, who had always adhered to the principle of a vigorous gentleman, could only feel like he had been f***ked. It was the kind that kept repeating itself from morning to night, working from sunrise to sunset. You have to get used to it. Dong Qitian lectured earnestly. Lazy cat, these two words have been around since the beginning of time. Do you think it's called for nothing? If it weren't for the 9 Lives demon cat's lazy nature, do you think the position of demon emperor would have fallen to someone else? He was so lazy that when his companions who entered the Tao at the same time became demon emperors, demon saints, and demon lords, the 9 Lives demon cat with the best aptitude in the beginning only managed to achieve the position of demon king and grand duke. The corners of Yun Yang's lips twitched. The 9 Lives demon cat clan is famous for being lazy. This is nothing new. Dong Qitian said, take the matter of being oppressed by the entire demon clan for example. If it were other demon clans they would have long planned to escape, but the demon cat clan would rather endure it day by day, muddling through day by day, until they're almost exhausted and can't take it anymore. Only then do they respond. The cat clan will feel sleepy as long as they're full. They'll feel sleepy when the sun shines on them, and it's only logical that they'll feel sleepy when it's dark. They'll also feel sleepy after standing for a long time, and they'll definitely feel sleepy after a battle. They won't stop if they don't sleep for a few days and nights. Yun Yang was speechless. Is there a time when they're not sleepy? There is. Dong Qitian answered. May I ask when? When they're playing, Dong Qitian said, they'll never feel sleepy when they're playing. For example, when the female cat was catching the butterfly, wasn't she full of energy? In the end she was still in high spirits, wasn't she? Yun Yang was speechless for a long time before he said, you're asking me to take back such a lazy cat? Is it really because of old Demon Hun? Dong Qitian smiled faintly and said, of course it's not just that. This girl is still very useful. Remember, she's very useful. He paused and said, let's not talk about the others. Let's talk about your whiteys. Until now they only know how to fight with their innate talent, don't they? Yun Yang's eyes shone brightly when he heard that realization rising in his heart. Yes, this Bai Bingxian may not be good in other aspects, but she's obviously an excellent teacher for the whiteys. Even if you exclude training the whiteys, that girl is still useful. You'll have to go to the demon clan in the future no matter what. Besides, it's hard to avoid the ultimate battle between humans and the demon clan, so you must plan ahead. As for Bai Bingxian, the information she knows now is already enough for you to dominate the demon clan. Even if the 9 Lives demon cat clan has fallen to the point where only one of them is left alive, they were once the top nobility of the demon clan after all. They have their own secrets. Dong Qitian said, haven't you thought about this before? This isn't like you usually. Against the alien races, knowing more about them would be a great help. For example, what is the weakness of the Fox clan? What is the weakness of the Bear clan? Does the Panther clan have any shortcomings? Is there anything they can't do? I believe Bai Bingxian must have some understanding of these. With her impression of the demon clan, I believe she'll be more than happy to spill everything she knows. Dong Qitian said meaningfully, also, the 9 Lives cat ancestor might not really be dead. If the 9 Lives cat ancestor reappears in the bound of universe one day, don't you know what kind of commotion he'll cause? Just the fact that you're taking care of his descendants is enough to earn you a handsome reward. Listening to Dong Qitian's words, Yun Yang could not help pondering and nodded after a while. Indeed, the older the ginger, the spicier it was. Even with Yun Yang's intelligence, willpower, and experience, it was inevitable that he would be blinded by a single leaf. Dong Qitian, on the other hand, had taught Yun Yang an enlightening lesson with his experience and wisdom. The next day, Bai Bingxian had just woken up and was about to check on the few flowers that had just bloomed in her yard. What if more butterflies came? Unexpectedly, when she opened the door, she was surprised to see 5 furry little things rolling around in the yard. As far as the eye could see, the 5 little things were completely snow white. Only one of them was slightly bigger, while the other 4 were snowballs the size of wool balls. They rolled around on the grass and chased after each other. They were having so much fun that they forgot everything else. These are, Bai Bingshuan's eyes widened. These are 5 little kittens? They're so cute. Bai Bingxian approached them carefully, afraid that she would scare the 5 adorable little fellows. She tried her best to be as gentle as possible. They're little kittens that haven't transformed yet. Meow, they're so cute, meow. Chapter 12:02. When she walked closer, she was surprised to find that her 5 subordinates were already standing on the side, their expressions strange. What is it? Bai Bingxian asked. Miss, take a closer look. Look at the 5 cats. Bai Bingxian turned her head to take a closer look. After identifying them several times, she realized something and could not help but widen her eyes in shock. This isn't our cats, meow. One of the ladies looked serious. The bigger one is a cat, but it's a mystical cat and not a mystical beast. It should be a low-level mystical beast, a lightning cat. Other than moving extremely fast, there's nothing special about this mystical beast. The other 4 are also mystical beasts, but they're eclipse panthers, not cats. Bai Bingxian swallowed and said, but, they're so cute. Mystical beasts and mystical beasts are fundamentally different. Once a demonic beast awakens its intelligence, it will have the embryonic form of a demon. As long as it goes through a certain level of cultivation, it will be able to absorb the essence of heaven and earth, and it will have a chance to transform into a human. It will be able to speak and cultivate a more profound cultivation technique. As for mystical beasts, to reach this step they have to go through the purest form of rebirth before they can transform. Of course, once the mystical beast transforms successfully, compared to the mystical beasts, it's not only invincible among the same level, it can even fight 10 at once. 4 of these 5 mystical beasts, the eclipse panthers, have gained intelligence and hope of transforming. Only their bones are still there, their mystical bodies are still there, and their bloodline hasn't changed. That's why they're stuck at the current high-level mystical beasts and it's hard for them to break through again. Bai Bingxian said, how can I not know what you're talking about? What I'm really puzzled about now is how did they appear here? I sent them here. Yun Yang walked in from the door with a friendly smile. The whiteys have nothing to do anyway, so why don't I send them to play with you? It's considered making the best use of them. Bai Bingxian had just escaped a disaster and was naturally lazy, but she was not stupid. She said, what do you mean, Leader Yun? Yun Yang said, I'm just thinking that my whiteys' fighting style is still based on their innate ability to attack. Isn't it too monotonous? If Lady Bai is willing to help. Bai Bingxian frowned and fell into deep thought. Yun Yang said, these whiteys are my treasures. There was no need to say it clearly. As long as you treat my baby well, I will not treat you unfairly. But on the other hand, if you can't make my whitey better, what's the point of me keeping you around? Bai Bingxian was silent for a while. Then she said, Sect Master Yun Rong Bingxian can teach them our 9 Lives Demon Cat Clan's cultivation technique. But I can't guarantee that it will be able to help them change their bloodline. Yun Yang felt relieved and said softly, this is already very good. I don't have the intention to demand more. Everything is a matter of fate. Following Yun Yang's command, the 5 whiteys lined up neatly in a row, squatting on the ground and looking up at him. Her adorable and well-behaved appearance made people's hearts melt. Regardless of whether it was a man or a woman, it was difficult for anyone to avoid this. The 5 of you will cultivate with Sister Bai from now on, understand? Remember not to cause trouble. Yun Yang said sternly. Meow. The 5 whiteys spoke at the same time, their voices soft and tender, captivating and lingering. Bai Bingxian felt as if her heart had melted. When she looked at the 5 whiteys again, her eyes narrowed. At this moment Yun Yang's voice rang in her ears, Lady Bai, I won't say much. Our abilities are still very weak now. But in the future, if Lady Bai wants to return to the demon race and reclaim the glory of your ancestors. Although it's not convenient for me to make an appearance, these 5 whiteys can help Lady Bai. Bai Bingshuan's heart skipped a beat. He turned abruptly to look at Yun Yang and said quietly, Don't worry, Sect Leader Yun. I'll do my best to help the 5 whiteys advance smoothly and transcend. Yun Yang nodded and said, Thank you very much. The whiteys had unexpectedly found a teacher who could train them and a cultivation method that suited their cultivation. Yun Yang's worries were greatly relieved. Even if Bai Bingxian was still lazy, as long as the 5 whiteys were here, he believed that she would not be the same as before no matter what. The truth was as Yun Yang had expected. Bai Bingshuan's regret deepened with each passing day. The 5 whiteys were smart, there was no doubt about it. It was evident from the fact that they had developed intelligence before they could transform. However, they were a little too smart. Bai Bingxian had just taught them how to cultivate step by step, and the 5 whiteys had already begun to cultivate on their own. Just as Bai Bingxian breathed a sigh of relief, her blanket was suddenly lifted when she was sleeping soundly the next morning. The 5 whiteys charged into her room. They sprawled over her head, chest, neck, and stomach. Meow, meow, meow. Meow, meow, meow. Wonderful. Get up quickly, come with us to cultivate. We're going to cultivate. We've learned what you taught us yesterday, take a look. We've learned what we learned yesterday, what are we going to learn today? Don't sleep anymore, get up quickly. Bai Bingxuan's hair was being pulled by Big Whitey, her ears were being pulled by Whitey 2, her chest was being pulled by Whitey 3, her pants were being pulled by Whitey 4, and Whitey 5 was sitting on her stomach, scratching and scratching. If it were Yun Yang, cough, if it were any other man, he would not be able to do anything to such a lazy lady as long as he did not treat her violently. However, this was not a problem for the 5 whiteys. They could just move their hands and feet and greet her with their mouths. How could they not get up? Bai Bingxian wriggled on the bed like a snake, refusing to open her eyes. She growled in agony, "Let me sleep for a while, let me sleep for a while more. Just a while. Just a while?" However, the 5 whiteys were not willing to give up. They continued to attack and grope her, greeting her to their heart's content. Facing the 5 seemingly small but actually powerful whiteys, the stalemate only lasted for a short while before Bai Bingxuan's clothes were torn to shreds, revealing her naked body. Bai Bingxian clutched the tattered clothes on her. I'll get up, I'll get up. Stop tearing. Oh my god. I'm regretting it. Meow, meow, meow. The next day, Bai Bingxian wailed and begged for mercy, crawling up in agony. Her clothes were disheveled and she looked aggrieved. I surrender. I'm regretting it. Sect leader Yun, D***MN. You really have a way. You. Fueled by an indescribably strong resentment, sect leader Yun, who had saved her from the abyss of suffering and given her a new lease on life, had become a D***MN. Who grabbed my hair? Who grabbed my chest? Who grabbed my pants? Who grabbed my butt? Who grabbed me? Bai Bingxian looked fiercely at the 5 whiteys in front of her. Her eyes were no longer filled with love like 2 days ago. Children were cute, but mischievous children were extremely annoying. If there was anything more annoying than one mischievous child, it would be a bunch of mischievous children. And to Bai Bingxian, this cat demon, the 5 whiteys were extremely annoying and terrifying mischievous children. But strictly speaking, what the 5 whiteys were doing now could not be considered naughty children. The real naughty one was obviously Bai Bingxian. The 5 whiteys sat in a row like 5 snow-white pom-poms. They raised their heads and stared at Bai Bingxian innocently. Meow, meow, meow. Bai Bingxian was furious. She shouted, meow. Meow, meow, meow. The 5 little fellows were stunned for a moment before they started rolling around. Meow. Bai Bingxian did not have the slightest desire to appreciate it. She was in so much pain that she wanted to die. After a while, she took out a brush and dipped it in ink. Come here, squat down. The 5 whiteys obediently lined up in a row. I can't recognize who you are, but I have my ways. Miss Bai laughed weirdly. She placed a black dot on one of the whiteys' heads, then another 2 dots, then 3, 4, and 5 dots. All of you remember this. You can wake me up in the future, but you are not allowed to pull my hair, my clothes, or even under my blanket. If I find out anyone who breaks the rules in the future, they will be severely punished. I can recognize you now. After a day of training, Bai Bingxian went back to her room to sleep in exhaustion. The next morning, she was disturbed by the whiteys as usual. You. Let me see who you are. I will definitely punish you and let you understand what it means to respect your teachers. Bai Bingxian sat up and opened her eyes. She was immediately dumbfounded. The 5 whiteys were squatting on his blanket in a row as usual. However, the black dot on their heads had already disappeared. Furthermore, the lightning cat whiteys were physically different from the other 4 whiteys, so it was easy to recognize them. However, now, the 5 whiteys were all the same size. There was no difference in size at all. Looking closely, she realized that not only did they look the same, even their gazes were innocent. They were like quintuplets. Bai Bingxian fainted from anger. How could she forget that these 5 fellows were high-level mystical beasts? Although they could not speak as well as cultivate demonic cultivation skills as she did, their actual cultivation base might even be higher than hers. How could they not have a way to grow or shrink? You're not trying to kill me, are you? I won't do it, I won't do it. Bai Bingxian lay on the bed, her eyes listless. Damn whiteys. Damn Yin Yang. Damn it, damn it. Bai Bingxian cursed incessantly. Even when she had assigned the Whiteys to her 5 subordinates to supervise their training, the Whiteys would still come to harass her every morning, punctual every day. You fellows are also a kind of cat. Why are you all working so hard? Don't you need to sleep? Bai Bingxian broke down completely. How could she know that Yun Yang had always believed in self-improvement? His priority was to find friends. It was the same when he had befriended the demiurge Flawed Ten. It was the same when he had rescued and befriended Dong Qitian. It was the same when he had taken in many children who had been abducted but still worked hard. The laziness of the cat race was the behavior he despised the most. As the saying went, everything resembled its owner. The 5 Whiteys had been by Yun Yang's side since they were born. How could they not work hard? Come to think of it, everyone around Yun Yang, whether it was the residents of 9 Supremes now or when they were in Tianshan continent in the past, who among them did not work hard? The current situation of the residents of 9 Supremes was very different from the past. It was roughly divided into 3 areas, the smallest of which was reserved for Bai Bingxian to train the 5 Whiteys. At the same time, it limited the range of movement of Bai Bingxian and her people. After all, the residence of 9 Supremes was not limited to the people of the residence of 9 Supremes. How could one be sure that there were no experienced people in the Phoenix Cry sect who could see through Bai Bingxian's background? This was a risk that could not be taken. Other than this small, almost negligible part, the rest of the areas were distributed in a 9-to-1 manner, with more than 90% of the area naturally belonging to the residence of 9 Supremes. The other side was where the Phoenix Cry sect taught its disciples, and the disciples of both sides were training hard. On the field, every day there was a lively scene, one after another. The higher-ups of the Phoenix Cry sect were very satisfied with this situation. Although the disciples still looked at them coldly, it did not affect their desire to learn and improve. Everyone's cultivation progress was extremely fast, at least twice as fast as the disciples of the Phoenix Cry sect. Some top geniuses' cultivation speed was even more than twice the normal speed of the Phoenix Cry sect's disciples. It was a miracle. Even if the spiritual qi in the residence of 9 Supremes was unusually abundant, even more so than the headquarters of the Phoenix Cry sect, and even if these disciples were all gifted, there was no reason for them to improve so fast, was there? As time went on, the people of the Phoenix Cry sect gradually discovered the key to the difference. Not only was the progress of the disciples' cultivation faster than expected, but it seemed like his body was also becoming more relaxed and comfortable. The internal injuries that he had accumulated over the years in the martial world were actually getting better bit by bit, and were being healed in an appropriate manner. The residence of 9 Supremes is indeed a blessed place, much better than our sect. The 12 of them had already begun to think about whether they should find a reason to stay when they needed to go back to the academy. The disciples selected by the Phoenix Cry sect, on the other hand, were all complaining and sighing. The competition will begin in 10 days. How can we beat them with our current strength? Just thinking about it makes me feel bored. If we win, we'll become traitors. If we lose, we'll be even more humiliated, and we'll be blamed for not working hard enough. No matter what, we still have to try our best to win. Only when we win can sect leader master see our efforts and our breakthrough in adversity, and he'll be willing to take us back. You're right. Practice hard. Meanwhile, in the residence of 9 Supremes, Yun Xiaoxin and the others walked through the group of junior brothers with their hands clasped behind their back, their faces tense. There's still 10 more days before the tournament. You bear the honor of the residence of 9 Supremes. If you win, you'll come back as heroes, but if you lose, think about it, which one of you can afford to lose face? We have to win even if we have to risk our lives. We have to win even if we have to die. We have to win no matter what. We have to win. If we win, we'll be rewarded. If we lose, the eldest senior sister's laughter was like a devil's. The group of disciples cultivated even harder. I'm going out for tea today? Yes, tea, so I'll update in advance. GT. Chapter 1203. Amidst such a heated atmosphere of competition, the residence of 9 Supremes had a visitor again. Outside the mountain gate, a big black bear covered in wounds walked up weakly and plopped down at the residence of 9 Supremes' door, moaning, "Is this the residence of 9 Supremes? Is anyone there? I'm here for Leader Yun." It was the black bear from the school of imperial beasts. Yun Yang was shocked when he saw the bear king. What happened to you? The black bear's cultivation base was not low. Even though Yun Yang's cultivation base had improved tremendously during this period of time, there was still a gap between him and the Bear King back then. At a glance, the Bear King seemed to have lost 90% of his life. His entire body was covered in cuts and bruises. Roughly, there were at least 700 to 800 of them. It was already a miracle that he could make it to the residence of 9 Supremes with such injuries. "I've come to seek refuge with you. I'm not leaving since I'm here." The black bear rolled his eyes and fainted right after he said this. Following that, the gigantic body fell to the ground, and with a loud boom, it actually smashed down a large tree beside it. "Carry him in." Without delay, Yunyang quietly sent in a wisp of air of vitality and fed it 2 medicinal pills. Only then did he order his men to carry the black bear in. The mountain gate was so wide, but the black bear had to be turned sideways to enter. The gate did not seem to live up to its name anymore. This physique is really extraordinary. After a day and a night, the black bear finally regained consciousness. Yunyang only knew the whole story after asking. It was done by someone from the school of imperial beasts? Yunyang's eyes widened, disbelief written all over his face. No wonder there's bewitching incense, poison, and all sorts of peculiar medicinal ingredients in your body, causing you to lose a large amount of spiritual energy and diminish your ability. What happened? The Bear King was the guardian beast of the school of imperial beasts. What had happened? Although Black Bear had regained consciousness, he was still weak and dispirited. After returning from the competition, the conflict between me and those brats gradually escalated. In the end, when the sect asked me to do something, I just didn't go. It was also at that time that I broke the arms of 2 of the sect's elders, and from then on, all banners of flags and drums of war. Then, I had nothing to do for a long time. I wanted to come to the residence of 9 Supremes to find you, but thinking that I've been in the school of imperial beasts for so many years, I felt like old friends, especially during this period of time. The food prepared by that kid was far better than before, so it didn't sound good to mention the bear now. Who knew that it was all a conspiracy? The so-called improvement of my meals was actually an opportunity for them to poison and drug my meals. Then they mobilized the entire sect to kill me. The black bear's eyes were filled with hatred. Luckily, you gave me a stream of energy during the competition. I didn't use it, so I managed to keep my head clear. It was so close that I made it all the way to the residence of 9 Supremes. The black bear obviously did not know that he was already exhausted when he came to the residence of 9 Supremes. Moreover, his last breath of energy had dissipated when he came to the rescue. If it were not for Yunyang's timely injection of vitality, he would have been completely drained and his soul would not have been able to recover. It's all right. Since you're here now, you're completely safe, Yunyang comforted him. The only thing you need to do now is to rest well. We'll talk about the rest after you've recovered. The black bear nodded weakly. What do you plan to do about the beast trainer sect? Do you have any thoughts of seeking revenge and justice in the future? Yunyang paused and asked the black bear bluntly. The black bear tilted his head and began to ponder. After a long time he said, "Forget it. It's all just a sin. If I really destroy his efforts and destroy the beast trainer sect, it'll be the same as erasing the first half of my life. It's better to leave some memories behind. In the future we'll mind our own business. As long as they don't come looking for me, I won't go looking for trouble with them." After the black bear finished speaking, it went back to sleep. Yunyang nodded and sighed softly. He did not expect the Black Bear King to be such a sentimental person. A sentimental bear. In all fairness, if the Black Bear King had asked for Yunyang's help in his revenge, Yunyang would have helped. However, he would never dare to treat the Black Bear King as one of his own. The Black Bear King and the Beast Trainer sect had a deep relationship and had been in the sect for many years. It was difficult to erase the ties between them. Although the people of the Beast Trainer sect had tried to kill the Black Bear King because he wanted to leave, the root cause was still the Black Bear King's abandonment of their ties. Yunyang questioned himself. While he did not agree with the actions of the people of the Beast Trainer sect, it was difficult to criticize them based on their standpoint. Now that the Black Bear King had cast aside his gratitude and grudges and written off the vengeance that had killed him, he had reached his limit. Looking at the disappointment and bewilderment on this fellow's face, this matter would probably be a knot in the Black Bear King's heart that was difficult to unravel. However, Yunyang had no way of unraveling it. There was probably no one in this world who could undo this knot for him. Let's recuperate first. Yunyang thought about it for a long time. Emotions had always been a complicated thing. When it came to measuring a person's character and bottom line, one would usually start from emotions. Yunyang asked himself, I feel relieved that the Black Bear King has chosen to stop and not seek revenge, but do I feel a little disappointed as well? However, if the Black Bear King had chosen revenge and bloodshed, Would he be even more disappointed? Yunyang asked himself, how can I not be disappointed at a time like this? After thinking for a long time, he sighed. There's no solution. However, can a loyal person only suffer losses? Yunyang stood in the sky and thought for a long time. I've thought about this question for a long time as well. After a period of time, the disciples of the residents of 9 Supremes began to leave the sect in batches to roam the martial world and experience the mortal world. Those who remained in the sect would only become more diligent in their cultivation, not slacking off for even a moment. During this period of time, the Jianghu could be said to be in a state of peace. Even if there were occasional battles, they were just sporadic killings in the Jianghu fighting for fame. There were rarely any large-scale battles. In spite of this, the troubles of the secular world still made the residents of 9 Supremes look more like a paradise, untainted and peaceful. Not too long ago, the General Commerce League had come again to discuss the matter of entering the spirit's grave with Yunyang. The General Commerce League, who had successfully ascended to the upper-class celestial luck banners, seemed to be even wealthier than before. Conversely, their desire for the good stuff in the spirit's grave was still lingering. However, Yunyang did not bring out anything good this time. There were only a few pieces of ethereal amethysts and a stream of air of vitality. However, this was enough for the General Commerce League. After confirming the next cooperation, the Commerce League hurriedly ended this round of transactions. They came and went in a hurry. After all, they had just been promoted to an upper-class sect. There were many things waiting to be done. It was already commendable that they could take a break from their busy schedule to come here. On this day, the people of the residence of 9 Supremes were cultivating enthusiastically as usual. A sudden sword chime startled the group. Clang. The sound could almost be heard throughout the mountains and valleys. The entire bound of universe could hear it. Everyone was shaken. More than 70% of the more than 10,000 disciples in the residence of 9 Supremes were swordsmen. At this moment, they could not help but feel shocked at the same time, for their swords had all left their scabbards at this very moment. They soared into the air simultaneously, emanating a chilling glint. Yunyang was playing chess with Dong Qitian at the moment. When he heard the sound, he frowned and looked up. Dong Qitian's expression was unprecedentedly solemn as he said softly, "The King of Swords has come into being." The King of Swords? Yunyang was puzzled by the title. There was no such title among the cultivation ranks, was there? Your second peak master. Supreme Sword, Shi Wuchen, right? Dong Qitian said, it should be him. He's walked a path of swordsmanship that belongs entirely to him. The expression on Dong Qitian's face was a little complicated when he spoke. Yunyang was overjoyed. At this moment, he could not care less about Dong Qitian's expression as he got up and was about to rush out. Don't be hasty. He's only found the path he should now. He hasn't really succeeded in cultivating it yet. Dong Qitian watched as the sword slowly descended from the sky and said faintly, one day, when all the long swords come to greet him on their own like this, with the tips of the swords flying upward, forming the image of thousands of swords worshipping him as they soar into the sky, his swordsmanship can only be said to be accomplished. Only then will his swordsmanship cultivation come to an end and he can step into the world once more. If you go now, you'll only disturb him and distract him. Yunyang stopped immediately and smiled sheepishly. I see. Thank you for your guidance, senior. This junior almost messed things up on impulse. Since the beginning of time, this old man has only heard of one person who has reached such a state. When he comprehended the sword, all the swords shot out at the same time. When he drew his sword, all the swords would greet him. Dong Qitian's face was full of emotion. I wonder how far this supreme sword of yours can go. May I ask, Senior Dong, who is this sword sage? It's wooden sword Saint Ci Hongqian. Dong Qitian's eyes were filled with admiration. Wooden sword Saint Ci Hongqian. What he cultivated from the beginning was to defend the world and protect all living beings in the world. As for Ci Hongqian, he's upright and outspoken, chivalrous and courageous. He's never killed anyone unjustly or wrongly in his entire life in the martial world. As the saying goes, the world owes me nothing, I have no regrets in the world. Yunyang murmured, the world owes me nothing, I have no regrets in the world. He could not help but let out a long sigh and said, Senior Ci Hongqian's state of mind is amazing and unattainable. What I, Yunyang, have pursued all my life is that in this world, others can owe me but I don't owe anyone. As long as I have a clear conscience, that's enough. I've always boasted that I'm not weaker than others and have always been proud of myself. But now, compared to this wooden sword saint, I'm far from it. The difference is like heaven and earth. It's because I think that others owe me, but I don't owe anyone. Deep down, I still care about what others owe me. Yunyang said slowly, my state of mind can't be considered complete when I have such thoughts. Dong Qitian said quietly, actually with your age, it's already commendable that you can have such a state of mind. It's not bad. Someone like Wooden Sword Saint, who has a pure mind and a sense of defending the world, lives too tiresome. He'll never accept loss. Forever, he only wants to possess everything that's good and that he cares about. That's why he's destined to be more tired than you. May I ask, Senior, for Senior Ci Hongqian's state of mind to be so pure, he must have ascended to the peak of this world and become a legend of the sword? That's not the case. Wooden Sword Saint used this sword as his foundation back then, but he was still only at the honor level after 300 years. He couldn't improve for a very, very long time. It was only when he reached the end of his honor level lifespan that his thoughts became clear and he understood the truth of Tao's imperfections. Finally, he broke through the shackles and surpassed his own limits. He even changed the iron sword he carried with him to a wooden sword. His cultivation base only truly started from then on, advancing boldly and vigorously. Yun Yang's thoughts wandered as he asked, may I ask where this accomplished swordsman, Senior Wooden Sword Saint, is now? Dong Qitian said quietly, if he hasn't stepped down, he's naturally still the master of the East Celestial Palace. The master of the East Celestial Palace. It's him? Yun Yang's heart skipped a beat. According to what Senior has said, as long as Yi Tua walks his own path, his future achievements won't be inferior to Wooden Sword Saint? Dong Qitian did not speak for a long time. When Yun Yang thought that he would not answer the question, Dong Qitian said slowly, that'll only be possible if Shi Wuchen can live until then. There are too many geniuses in the martial world who have died prematurely due to their path. Yi Tua will definitely succeed. Yun Yang said firmly. On another day, the competition between residents of Nine Supremes and Phoenix Cry sect began again. Although it was said to be a competition between the two sects, in fact, it was only a competition between the disciples of residents of Nine Supremes. However, Yun Yang had still informed Phoenix Cry sect that it was still a competition between the two sections. Whether they would come or not was a matter for the higher-ups of Phoenix Cry sect. It did not matter even if they did not come, but they had to show proper etiquette. To Yun Yang's surprise, the higher-ups of Phoenix Cry sect probably wanted to test the progress of their disciples, so they really came with 2,000 disciples. The higher-ups of both sects did not intervene in the competition. Instead, Yun Xiuxin, Bai Yexing and the others were the judges. After all, it was only a competition between disciples who had just entered the Tao. Whether it was the higher-ups of residents of Nine Supremes or Phoenix Cry sect, it was a waste of their talents to be the judges. This time, the competition was divided into 100 small arenas, and they took turns to fight. However, what made the Phoenix Cry sect lose face was that the Phoenix Cry sect only occupied one of the top 10 positions and it was the 10th position. The environment is the same, the disciples are taught the same, and our cultivation method is even stronger than that of residents of Nine Supremes. Why did we still get such a result? With such questions and grievances, when the people of Phoenix Cry sect returned, they urged the disciples further on the original basis. What they did not know was that the disciples who were selected to join Phoenix Cry sect were even more depressed and murmured to themselves. As expected, we really can't compare with them. I knew these guys wouldn't do. They have led us astray and tired us out. Meanwhile, Yun Xiuxin and the others from residents of Nine Supremes were furious. The two questions in this chapter are the two questions that have troubled me for a long time. One is Bear King and the other. Chapter 1204. What's going on? We've agreed to get all the top 10 places. Why did one of them slip away? What the hell are you guys doing? I'll triple the training later so that you'll remember it. You know what's good for you. And you look over there. I'm talking to you. Don't think that you're amazing just because you got the first place this time. If you're defeated by someone else next time, I'll see where you can hide your face. A single glory never means eternity, do you know that? You, the one who got the second place this time, do you know that you're only one step away from the first place? Can't you work harder? If you can't get the first place next time, I'll beat you to death. The one over there, didn't you feel good about yourself before the competition? Didn't you boast about yourself? Why did you only get the 6th place? Let's see if you still dare to boast and boast in the future. And you. Of course, they still have their shortcomings, but they've all defeated their opponents and won the ranking. What about you guys? A bunch of good-for-nothings. You've actually been defeated by someone else. It's not the residents of 9 Supremes Masters teaching their disciples over there. Why did you lose? Why did you lose? Isn't it because you didn't work hard enough? Do you know that your defeat is a slap to the residents of 9 Supremes' face? It's a complete disgrace to our masters. This time, the last 100 people in the last place will have their monthly benefits deducted. Their monthly allowance will be deducted. If you can't improve your ranking next month, half a year will be deducted. 3 times in a row, 1 year will be deducted. 5 times in a row, you can forget about the sect's resources for the rest of your life. The resources of the residents of 9 Supremes will never be given to trash with no perseverance, fighting spirit, and no progress. When Yun Xiaoxin announced the murderous reward and punishment system, the crowd fell into a dead silence. One could hear a pin drop. From now on we'll follow this system. When the challenge tournament starts 3 months later, we'll make new rewards and punishments. Not to mention what senior sister Yun Xiaoxin had said, the punishment seemed a little too high, didn't it? Moreover, the coverage of the flames of anger was too wide. It seemed like there was no one to reward. At this moment, a bold boy shouted from below, "Eldest senior sister, you only mention how to punish those who fall behind. Those who don't work hard enough and don't want to improve should indeed be punished. There's nothing wrong with that, but why didn't you say anything about how to reward those who are in front? For example, how should they reward those who made great progress? What kind of explanation would there be for going from the top 10,000 to the top 10,000? Also, advancing 10 ranks and advancing 100 ranks shouldn't be treated the same, right? If there's no way to advance further, isn't that unreasonable?" Yun Xiaoxin's face turned pale. She was filled with anger because the result of the competition was not as expected, so she flew into a rage and blurted out many punishments without thinking about the rewards. Now that she was suddenly asked, she could not help but be at a loss for words. After a pause, she said angrily with a flushed face, "Of course there will be an explanation for these. We'll discuss it later, and when we come up with a specific plan, we'll announce it immediately." Hearing Yun Xiaoxin's words, the crowd's emotions surged at once. There are rewards and punishments, and since you've been punished so heavily, the corresponding reward must be very heavy as well. If not, it's unreasonable. Seeing that the situation had gone too far, Yun Xiaoxin and the other top 10 disciples went back and held a meeting for half the night. In the end, Sun Mingxiu spent the whole night writing out the specific rules of rewards and punishments. The first place of each competition would be rewarded handsomely. The top 10 in each competition would also be rewarded handsomely, but slightly lower than the first place. If the ranking of the later competition was changed, it would depend on the specific situation. For example, if one fell from the first place to the top 3, there would be no reward or punishment, but if one fell too much at once, such as falling out of the top 3, there would be a corresponding punishment and so on. What Yun Xiaoxin said just now was simply what she blurted out without thinking. It had no reference value, so it was useless. If the second place could only improve to become the first place and the first place could not fall back, and everyone could only advance but not retreat, wouldn't that be killing everyone? Under this rule, if one was originally in the top 10, as long as one moved forward, the original reward would be doubled. But if one fell out of the top 10, his original reward would be halved, and he would have to pay a certain amount of his own resources as a punishment. This rule was applied to all the disciples ranked in the top 100. Then, it was the top 300, top 500, top 1000, top 3000, top 5000, and so on. The rewards and punishments would be implemented in descending order. The next 5,000 disciples would not be rewarded or punished, and the status quo would be maintained. As for the last 4,000 disciples, all those who had improved their ranking in the previous competition would not be rewarded or punished, but those who hesitated or even regressed would be punished accordingly. The last 2,000 disciples would be punished. The last 500 disciples would be punished heavily. The last 100 disciples who were still in the last 100 for 3 consecutive months would be automatically replaced by the part-time disciples. It was an elimination mechanism. All in all, there were actually more than 20 pages of paper. Moreover, this was only the preliminary plan. It was far from being completely perfected. "Isn't this the same as asking me to write a book?" Sun Mingxiu smiled bitterly. The job naturally fell to Sun Mingxiu, Yu Chenghang, Bai Yexing, and a few others. As for Yun Xiaoxin, Hu Xiaofan, Lu Changman, Cheng Yi, and the other disciples of the Central Peak, they had all given up. Although Yun Xiaoxin's cultivation base was the best among all the disciples, when it came to internal and external affairs, as well as the management of the sect, She could only curse and perhaps beat people, but she really had no other abilities. Capable people do more work. Yun Yang, Luo Dajiang, and the others only watched from the sidelines and no one said anything. Instead, it was Kong Luiwei who came to talk to Yun Yang in private. What do you think, boss? I've never seen you specially train the disciples of the sect leader. Yun Xiaoxin is recognized by all the disciples as the one who will inherit your mantle. If you don't train her carefully, how can she lead the mansion in the future? Yun Yang smiled amiably and said, why do we need to nurture them specifically? Kong Luiwei was speechless. Why should he be groomed? Did I not make myself clear enough just now? You're the leader of the residents of 9 Supremes, you're the leader. Don't you want to groom your successor to be the next leader? Wasn't this a logical extension? Luiwei, I think you have a misunderstanding about my thoughts or perhaps a blind spot. My disciple may not necessarily be the next leader of the residents of 9 Supremes. Let the children recommend the people they trust, and let them find their own position in the sect. This is the long-term development of a sect. Yun Yang chuckled. A sect leader's disciple doesn't necessarily have to be the sect leader. It's best to do the job that suits them the most. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.